In a brutal, medieval world, the reincarnated noble Johann Eitz saw only one thing: money. He lived in a land where the weak were prey and the strong drank their blood, a reality he understood far too well. While out hunting with his companion, Joseph, a missed shot and a broken bow left Joseph frustrated. Johann, however, remained focused on the bigger picture. He reflected on his new life. Reborn as a noble in this harsh era wasn't inherently bad, but he was at the very bottom of his family's hierarchy. There was no inherited wealth or status for him. His only hope was to avoid being stripped naked and exiled during his siblings' inevitable power struggles. The biggest challenge, though, was the world itself. This wasn't a fantasy game with convenient status windows or awakened abilities. It was a gritty, realistic medieval era where death offered no rest, and the weak were simply food for the strong. Johann quickly understood that his survival depended on money. With enough coin, he could escape his family's territory and forge his own path, perhaps as a merchant or even a free farmer. His entire being became consumed by this singular goal. During their hunt, Joseph proudly presented a rare medicinal herb, the little devil grass, explaining its uses for stopping bleeding and boosting alertness. Johann's immediate thought was, of course, its market value. A dropped pouch of herbs, however, made him realize they weren't alone in the deep forest. A child's desperate screams soon confirmed his suspicion. They found a young girl, Dell, surrounded by a pack of vicious, people-eating wolves. Joseph, overwhelmed by the sheer number of predators, urged a retreat to call for backup. But Johann had a different plan. He instructed Joseph to rescue Dell while he drew the wolves' attention, essentially offering himself as bait. Joseph was stunned, unable to comprehend why a noble would risk his life for a mere commoner. Johann, however, saw not danger, but opportunity. If he had known this gold mine existed, he would have learned to hunt even more diligently. These wolves weren't just threats, they were adorable little moneymakers. With a wild grin, he charged into the pack, wielding his sword with a bizarre, unconventional style that left Joseph utterly bewildered. As Johann battled the wolves, back at Boltredden village, the Eitz family's territorial inspection procession was underway. Lord Gazin Eitz, his first son Philip, and the concubine Madame Eitz openly expressed their disdain for the miserable countryside. Philip noted Johann's absence, but Gazin swiftly dismissed it, calling his son a dimwit and openly wishing for his death, just like his wretched mother. Yet, even as they spoke, evidence of Johann's relentless training lay hidden. A pile of straw at the village entrance, meant to conceal unsightly damage, revealed the true extent of his efforts. The family scoffed at the idea of Johann training, but the splintered trees, deeply scarred by countless strikes, told a different story. Back in the forest, Johann continued his brutal fight. He acknowledged that traditional swordsmanship wasn't his forte. Instead, he fought his way, fueled by the primal need for survival and the promise of wealth. To earn the money he craved and avoid becoming prey in this unforgiving world, he needed strength. Strength so overwhelming it transcended human limitations. With a ferocious roar, he unleashed a powerful, glowing attack, slicing through the pack. Joseph watched, aghast, unable to fathom the monstrous power Johann now wielded. Standing amidst the slain beasts, covered in blood, Johann's eyes gleamed with an almost manic intensity as he wondered, how much is all this worth? Reincarnated into a harsh medieval world, Johann had no choice but to accept his difficult life. As a lower-ranked individual, his higher-ranked brothers constantly tormented him, showing off their status and beating him whenever they pleased. From an early age, he understood just how merciless this world was, realizing that even if he were beaten to death, no one would care. The only one he could truly rely on was himself, and so, he thought, he would use what he had. Fortunately, Johann possessed a unique advantage over the people of this era: the vast knowledge from his past life as a modern student who had studied endlessly for jobs and countless exams. His mind held information medieval people couldn't even imagine, and he decided to put it to use. He created a rigorous training regimen based on modern exercise science and high-intensity principles, practicing practical close combat martial arts. For his diet, he gathered discarded oats, cabbage, beans, and quail eggs, meticulously constructing a nutritionally balanced meal, much to the confusion of those around him. His endless training accumulated over several years, and with each session his body displayed increasingly overwhelming strength. One day, while out, he found a pack of monstrous wolves attacking a young serf named Dell and an older man, Joseph. Seeing the wolves as valuable pelts, Johann recklessly intervened, easily dispatching the entire pack. Joseph, initially expressing gratitude for Johann's honorable action, quickly revealed his true intentions, planning to sell Dell and the other villagers as slaves. Suddenly, a much larger, monstrous wolf, the pack leader, appeared, its eyes glowing red. Joseph and Dell urged Johann to run, insisting such a creature required an entire army. Johann, annoyed that this world was not merely medieval but also contained monsters, saw the new beast as even more valuable prey. He engaged the monster, but during the fierce fight, he accidentally scratched its hide, lamenting the potential drop in price. As the battle continued, he began to lose strength, feeling an unfamiliar weakness. Just as he felt himself fading, a bright, explosive energy erupted from him, overwhelming the monster. When the light subsided, the monstrous wolf was gone, along with his sudden weakness. Confused but safe, Johann checked on Dell and the villagers. He still wished he could have collected the wolf pelts. As he headed back to the village, he noticed it was unusually bright, assuming everyone was out searching for Dell. He optimistically considered if saving Dell might earn him some favor with his father, perhaps even a position in the guards, though he quickly dismissed the thought, knowing his father's true nature. Just then, his brother, Johann Eitz, appeared, angrily demanding to know where he had been. It was then that Johann remembered. Today was the day of his father's inspection. His father soon arrived, ignoring Johann's attempts to explain his unavoidable circumstances, and angrily declared he would crack open that insolent head. Johann Eitz returned to his family estate, only to be met by his father, Gazen, who was seething with rage. Gazen immediately berated his son for not being home during the inspection, calling him an immature bastard. Johann, realizing he had completely forgotten about the inspection, knew he was in deep trouble as his father, mounted on horseback with his knights, approached. As Gazen continued to rage, threatening to bash his head in for ignoring him, Johann reflected on his recent near-death experience. He had barely survived, and now he had to endure his father's dogmatic fury, especially without even having the wolf pelts to show for his adventure. A desperate plan formed in his mind, ultimate ass-kissing. He dramatically declared that his absence was not intentional. He had been saving people from the forest. Pointing to a child named Dell, he spun a tale of fighting off a dozen human-eating wolves to rescue the boy. He admitted his absence from the inspection, but asserted that he had fulfilled his duty as a son of a knight household. With a bold flourish, he even requested the guard captain position as a reward. Giesen, however, was not easily fooled. He mockingly addressed Johann as his precious future guard captain and demanded proof of these wolves. Johann, taken aback, insisted he wasn't lying and claimed he had even encountered a formidable dark wolf. This only fueled Gazen's fury, who roared that his son was a liar and threatened to rip his mouth open. In a surprising turn, Johann asked if his father wanted a duel. He decided to prove his skills, despite his reluctance to fight his own father. Giesen readily agreed, eager to see his son's true abilities. He commanded Johann to raise his sword, declaring they would duel with weapons. Johann was utterly stunned. His father had never taught him how to wield a sword. He silently cursed Gazen, realizing the profound unfairness of the challenge. Gazen, still calling him a piece of shit, ordered Johann to unsheath his sword. Philip, one of the accompanying knights, reluctantly offered his own weapon to the young man. Gazen then offered a final chance, suggesting Johann beg for forgiveness if he wished to survive. But Johann refused, believing he had done nothing wrong and that a true man did not run from a challenge. He resolved to learn from the duel, hoping to finally earn his father's acknowledgement by showcasing his worth. As the duel began, an unexpected, monstrous red aura emanated from Johann. Gazen recoiled in shock, questioning the nature of this power. Johann launched a powerful attack, catching his father off guard and drawing blood. Gazen, wounded, glared at his son and furiously called him a parasite. The onlookers whispered in fear, believing Gazen was serious and might actually kill Johann. Gazen ranted, explaining that he never taught his son the sword because he would always be useless, declaring that Johann would never surpass him. He asserted that the estate belonged solely to him, untouchable by anyone, even the emperor. Johann, bleeding and struggling to see, wondered if his father had lost his mind from drinking. Gazen delivered a devastating blow, shattering Johann's borrowed sword and sending him sprawling. Lying defeated, Johann quietly admitted his loss. Gazen stood over him, coldly telling him to know his place and threatening to bash his head in if he ever saw him again before riding off with his knights. The people watching lamented the unfairness of Sir Gazen's actions. Later, Father Valberg tended to Johann, expressing concern. Valberg criticized Gazen's cruel treatment, especially fighting in full armor against his unarmed son. Johann, though bruised, claimed he was fine, at least alive. Johann chuckled grimly, acknowledging his powerlessness and the reality that he had never learned to wield a sword. He conceded that his defeat made sense, given Gazen's experience and mastery of family techniques. Valberg then recounted the tale of Sir Brits from a neighboring estate who had single-handedly slain 300 serf soldiers, prompting Johann to marvel at the importance of technology. Johann lamented that he had believed he could easily defeat his drunken father after facing a formidable black wolf. Valberg's expression shifted, and he asked if the story of the black wolf was true. Johann confirmed that Joseph and Dell had witnessed it. Valberg gasped, exclaiming, "Oh, dear God!" Valberg explained that black wolves had been considered taboo for centuries, an omen of death by the priests, believed to bring bloodshed and demise. Johann, while dismissive of such superstitions, wondered if the black wolf had been a premonition of his brutal duel with his father. Valberg agreed it was possible, but reassured him that these were merely old tales, suggesting that perhaps God was helping Johann because he was a good person. Johann scoffed internally, his true thoughts focused solely on money. Meanwhile, a terrifying scene unfolded near the Eitz estate, in the Brits barony. Screams filled the air as people were mercilessly slaughtered by an invading force. They begged for mercy, but their pleas went unanswered. The attackers, mercenaries, continued their gruesome work, wondering why anyone bothered to run when death was inevitable. They reveled in the cruelty, killing everyone and burning the bodies. Their leader, the imposing Sir Karamov, accepted the Brits' family seal ring from his subordinates. He expressed disappointment in Brits, who, despite having killed 300 serf soldiers, had fallen quickly to his forces, not even worth being called a toy. Karamov declared himself the sword of the Holy Empire, his Imperial Majesty's proxy, and the recollector of seals, decreeing that he would punish all corrupt nobles as the emperor wished. He promised infinite gold and honor to those allied with the emperor, with a chilling command to his army to kill, steal, and burn everything in their path. Karamov announced their next target, the Eitz estate. In the throes of a brutal battle, Johann fought fiercely, deflecting blow after blow, his body taking a relentless pounding. Blood splattered, and the clang of metal echoed through the air as he pushed through the exhaustion, his determination unwavering. Yet the fight was merely a vivid nightmare, a recurring terror that plagued him since his encounter with the mysterious black wolf. He woke with a gasp, the dream's intensity still clinging to him. His father, Sir Johann, had warned him about the black wolf, describing it as a harbinger of ill fortune, an omen of blood and death, even earning the chilling title, Sign of Death, among priests. But Johann, dismissing it as mere superstition, tried to shake off the unsettling thoughts. He'd even convinced himself that the priest had called it an old legend, nothing more. He hadn't done anything to provoke the creature, he reasoned, before a sudden memory surfaced. He had, in fact, thrown a rather large rock at it. Shaking his head, he decided to push the ominous thoughts aside and focus on his training. Out in the sun-drenched fields, Johann practiced, his movements fluid and powerful. His younger brothers, Dell and Joseph, watched from a distance, their whispers laced with mockery, calling him cheeky. Johann, unfazed, challenged them, and with effortless grace, he quickly overpowered them in a brief sparring session. They whined about reporting him to their father, but he merely scoffed, pitying their short-sightedness and lack of concern for their future. His older brother, Philip, soon arrived, confirming what Dell and Joseph had hinted at. Their father had no intention of appointing Johann to any position. Philip explained their father's fear of Johann's strength, seeing it as a threat to his own power, just as he had once overthrown their grandfather. Johann, listening, resolved to forge his own path, recognizing he would need to find another way to make a living. Philip, however, revealed his own intentions. Unlike their father, he valued capability. He presented Johann with a plain surcoat, a long sword of unknown origin, and a spare chest plate, items Johann had long admired. Philip promised to appoint him captain of the Eighth Guard once he became lord, urging him to continue his training and, with a knowing look, to stop causing trouble. Johann bristled, internally protesting that he never started the trouble. As he examined the armor, Johann realized it was the very same set from his recurring nightmare. A chilling thought surfaced. Would wearing it lead to the same grim fate he'd experienced in his dream? Yet, an inexplicable sense of resolve washed over him, a feeling that he could somehow overcome it. Regardless of the premonition, he knew one thing for certain. To win, he needed proper equipment. Time passed, and stories of Johann's deeds began to circulate among the villagers. They spoke of how he had single-handedly slain 50 wolves, leaving the pelts behind, embodying the true spirit of a knight unburdened by greed. They lauded him for saving Dell and Joseph, praising his righteousness and purity, holding him up as the very model of a true knight. Their admiration for Johann was clear, especially when they compared him to their current Lord Gizon, whom they openly disparaged as a drunken, woman-chasing pig. One villager, whose daughter Del had been saved by Johann, even declared that drinks were on him, and they all raised their mugs in a toast to Sir Johann, the righteous knight. A cloaked stranger, who had been listening intently, interjected, asking who the generous villager was, noting he hadn't seen him around before. The stranger remarked on the villagers' audacity to badmouth their lord in front of a complete unknown, finding their stories about Johann Eitz quite interesting. He pressed for more details, his voice a low rumble. Johann, overhearing the tales, felt a surge of hope. Philip's promise resonated, making him believe his golden road had finally arrived. He saw the cloaked stranger stumble, now clearly intoxicated, lying on the ground. As a future captain of the guard, Johann felt it his duty to help a citizen in need. He approached the stranger, offering to escort him home, but as his hand touched the stranger, a sudden chilling cold pierced him. His eyes widened, glowing with an eerie red light as he stared at the stranger, whose own eyes now pulsed with a sinister blue. A horrifying realization dawned on Johann, leaving him gasping. What the hell? Johann Eitz found himself in a dire situation, ambushed and gravely wounded by a mysterious assailant. His mind raced, desperately trying to identify his attacker, wondering if it was an assassin sent by Gazin or perhaps even a hitman hired by the madam. But no, if Gazin had wanted him dead, he would have come himself, and Philip, his brother, would surely not resort to such extreme measures. It was a frustrating and terrifying predicament, as he couldn't even guess who might have sent this skilled killer. The assailant, a figure shrouded in mystery, was not interested in money, brushing off Johann's desperate offers of all his possessions. He introduced himself as Kegal, the guildmaster of the Nessos Guild and the Empire's greatest assassin, renowned as the Venom Serpent. Kegal had perfected his swordsmanship through countless assassinations, his movements so fluid and deadly they resembled a serpent's strike. Despite his fearsome reputation, Kegal faced a unique problem. He couldn't find a successor to inherit his deadly skills. He had searched far and wide, even within the Assassin's Guild, but found only those he deemed worthless insects. Many heirs of knightly families had chosen death over dishonor when confronted by him, further deepening his frustration. Growing impatient, Kegal sought out the Empire's witch, who prophesied that his disciple resided in Eitz Castle, a forgotten rural territory, and was one of the sons of the lecherous drunkard lord. Kegal was skeptical. Eitz Castle was a backwater dump, and the idea of his successor being there seemed absurd. Yet, he decided to believe the witch, having wasted too many years already. Even as he arrived, doubt clung to him, questioning if anyone worthy could truly exist in such a place. He decided that if the brat wasn't to his liking, he would simply kill him on the spot. Confronting Johann, Kegal presented him with two stark choices: die by his hand, or become his successor and learn his swordsmanship. Growing impatient, Kegal sought out the Empire's witch, who prophesied that his disciple resided in Eitz Castle, a forgotten rural territory, and was one of the sons of the lecherous drunkard lord. Kegal was skeptical. Eitz Castle was a backwater dump, and the idea of his successor being there seemed absurd. Yet, he decided to believe the witch, having wasted too many years already. Even as he arrived, doubt clung to him, questioning if anyone worthy could truly exist in such a place. He decided that if the brat wasn't to his liking, he would simply kill him on the spot. Confronting Johann, Kegal presented him with two stark choices: die by his hand, or become his successor and learn his swordsmanship. To Kegal's surprise, Johann, far from being terrified, was thrilled by the prospect of free swordsmanship lessons from a guildmaster of such incredible skill. He eagerly accepted, completely disregarding the fact that learning an assassin's art would brand him as a disgrace to any knightly family. Johann even audaciously asked for an allowance, demonstrating a unique lack of concern for honor and an intense focus on practical benefits. Meanwhile, back at Eitz Castle, Johann's father and brother Philip showed utter indifference to his absence. Philip declared himself the next lord, dismissing Johann's potential return as nonsense. Meanwhile, back at Eitz Castle, Johann's father and brother Philip showed utter indifference to his absence. Philip declared himself the next lord, dismissing Johann's potential return as nonsense. His father, equally uncaring, refused to waste time on that brat, stating that the weakling's death was of no concern to him. Kegal decided it was time to test Johann's skills. Handing him a sword, he noted Johann's recklessness and the way he broke swords often, momentarily considering simply killing him. But as the test began, Kegal was utterly astonished. He had initially found Johann's knightly stance lacking, assuming he would be another easy kill. Kegal decided it was time to test Johann's skills. Handing him a sword, he noted Johan's recklessness and the way he broke swords often, momentarily considering simply killing him. But as the test began, Kegel was utterly astonished. He had initially found Johan's knightly stance lacking, assuming he would be another easy kill. However, Johan, asking if he could fight however he wanted, unleashed a monstrous and unconventional fighting style. Kegel's doubts vanished instantly. This brat was monstrously strong. This brat was monstrously strong. The chapter opened with Johan in a fierce battle, facing an opponent whose raw power was truly astounding. Just a single punch from this formidable foe generated such immense air pressure that Johan felt his bones and muscles would be crushed if he took a direct hit. It was clear he wasn't fighting a mere human, but a force of nature, like a lion. Johan marveled at his opponent's incredible agility and evasive maneuvers, finding it hard to predict his movements. Despite being struck by the flat side of a blade, Johan remained conscious, a fact his opponent found quite ridiculous. After the skirmish, the opponent acknowledged Johan's inherent talent, remarking that he possessed the potential of a legendary hero had he been born in an earlier era. Johan expressed his gratitude, but his master quickly highlighted a critical flaw. Johan's uncontrolled strength would inevitably lead to his demise. Johan struggled to accept this, questioning how his own power could be his downfall. His master clarified that Johan simply couldn't control his immense strength. To prove his point, the master offered a challenge. If Johan could break his master's sword instead of his own, he would be rewarded with gold. The promise of such a treasure instantly ignited a spark of determination in Johan, making him eager to prove himself. However, in the ensuing clash, Johan's sword shattered, proving his master's words. He had been defeated not by his opponent's skill, but by his own untamed power. He realized that true mastery wasn't just about raw power, but about the ability to restrain and direct it. With a renewed sense of purpose, he vowed to master control, determined to fulfill his dream of becoming the guard captain of Eitz. Johan, seeing the master demonstrate incredible precision by shooting a fragment into a wall, understood the lesson. His master, in a stern voice, reiterated the necessity of learning to control his strength, warning him that without it, death was a certainty. To further illustrate his point, the master then casually sliced through Johan's armor with nothing more than a sword sheath, demonstrating that with proper control, even a blunt object could wield immense power. He assured Johan that once he truly commanded his abilities, his potential would be unimaginable. Johan, filled with conviction, declared his readiness for the arduous training ahead, even if it meant facing death. Weeks turned into months, and Johan dedicated himself to rigorous training. He slowly began to grasp the concept of holding back, though it was an incredibly difficult endeavor. He proudly noted his progress, having learned not to break his own sword during practice. Yet a part of him yearned for real swordsmanship, wondering when he would move beyond these foundational lessons. It was then that he noticed a peculiar group approaching in the distance, a company of what appeared to be elves or perhaps armored soldiers. Curiosity piqued, Johan approached them, asking who they were and why they were encroaching upon what he perceived as his training grounds. The soldiers, annoyed, dismissed him, telling him to leave the restricted area. Johan, not one to back down, challenged their authority, demanding to know who they were to order him around. They revealed themselves as the wolves of Akiten, His Imperial Majesty's directly affiliated mercenaries. The mention of mercenaries and the prospect of a well-paying job immediately caught Johan's attention. He eagerly inquired about their wages, comparing them to what a guard captain might earn. The mercenaries scoffed, boasting that their pay far surpassed any guard captain's salary, mentioning a staggering 2 golden coins per job. As the mercenaries continued to brag about their skills and wealth, Johan found himself seriously contemplating a career change. The allure of 2 golden coins per mission was a powerful motivator, making the guard captain's position seem less appealing. However, his musings were abruptly interrupted by the arrival of a truly imposing figure clad in magnificent golden armor. The mercenaries instantly fell silent, their previous bravado replaced by solemn reverence. Johan, still lost in thought, instinctively reached for his sword. The mercenaries were outraged, threatening him with beheading for such disrespect in the presence of Sir Komarov. But Komarov, the golden-armored knight, calmly waved them off, his gaze fixed on Johan. He simply asked Johan's name, to which our boy, trembling slightly, identified himself as Johan of House Eitz. Komarov was no ordinary knight. He was a Holy Empire Emperor's Guard knight. Johan realized he had drawn his sword without conscious thought, an involuntary reaction to the overwhelming, suffocating, murderous intent radiating from Komarov. It was a feeling he had never experienced before, not even when facing the fearsome Black Wolf or when his own father had tried to kill him. He felt like prey, utterly exposed before an apex predator. Kamarov coolly instructed Johann to move, saying he was in the way. Johann, paralyzed by fear, could only watch as the formidable knight passed by. One of Kamarov's subordinates, a knight named Jane, remarked on Johann's terror and asked if it was truly all right to leave him there. Kamarov's response was chilling. He simply didn't wish to cause a ruckus on such a good day, not yet, that is. Left alone and shaken, Johann could only stare after the Emperor's knight, his mind reeling with questions about why such a powerful figure would be in this remote location. The encounter left him deeply unsettled, a prelude to unknown challenges ahead. Philip Eitz, the self-proclaimed next lord of House Eitz, eagerly greeted Sir Karamov, a figure of immense renown who had unexpectedly arrived at their humble domain. Philip, puffed with pride, introduced his young son John as the true heir, the one destined to become the real lord. His wife, seizing the opportunity, openly flirted with Karamov, showering him with compliments before inviting him into the inner castle. Karamov, however, seemed to pay little attention to Philip's welcoming words. His silence was broken only by a direct inquiry, "Where is Gazin?" Philip's wife, ever the opportunist, quickly stepped in. She asserted her position as the rightful lady of the house, claiming the duty of overseeing Karamov's reception. Her true aim, Philip suspected, was to elevate young John's status through this esteemed guest. Philip, though irritated, offered no resistance, even defending Karamov's informal address of Lord Gazin by highlighting his supreme standing as the Empire's greatest knight. Unmoved by the pleasantries, Karamov summarily dismissed everyone, demanding alcohol and stating he would wait for Gazin inside the castle. Meanwhile, Johann Eitz, far from the castle's political machinations, was enduring a grueling training session with his master, Kaigal. The master, a seasoned assassin, sharply criticized Johann for his lack of focus, reminding him that a poisoned dagger would have ended his life. Johann confessed his mind was preoccupied. He revealed that knights, claiming to be the Emperor's personal guard, had arrived in the village and were controlling entry, a highly unusual and suspicious act for what was Eitz's family territory. Kaigal, however, dismissed his concerns, emphasizing Karamov's status as the Emperor's direct knight, the continent's strongest warrior, and one who wore legendary armor. Johann, intrigued, then posed a bold question: was this legendary knight stronger than his own master? Kaigal's response was immediate and stark. He declared that if he ever faced Karamov, he would turn and run without hesitation. Johann, with youthful bravado, argued that the outcome of a fight was only known after it was fought. This retort angered Kaigal, who chastised him as an idiot, who couldn't even control his own strength and lacked basic swordsmanship. Despite the harsh words, Johann remained resolute, insisting he would master the skill. The training intensified. Johann swung his scabbard repeatedly, frustrated as it failed to cut. Kaigal explained that it wasn't a real sword and then offered a crucial lesson: the flow of strength. He instructed Johann not to swing blindly, but to transfer and concentrate his strength at the tip of the weapon. Slowly, Johann began to grasp the concept of controlling his inner power. As he continued to practice, the dull thud of his scabbard sharpened, signaling a breakthrough. Kaigal, sensing the shift in Johann's technique, felt a surge of unease. Then, with a decisive motion, Johann's scabbard sliced through the air, cutting his target. He was astonished, exclaiming his success with disbelief. Elated, he declared he had completely grasped the feeling and found it surprisingly easy. Kaigal, with a hint of sarcasm, attributed it to luck. Challenging Johann further, he commanded him to attack again, promising not to hold back this time. Johann unleashed a swirling purple attack, a technique he had only glimpsed. Johann won again, leaving Kaigal utterly dumbfounded. The master couldn't comprehend how Johann, having only been taught strength control, could now freely execute the Serpent's Tongue secret sword technique. He had only seen it once, briefly, on their very first day, yet Johann was performing it more perfectly than Kaigal himself. The old assassin's instincts screamed a terrifying truth. Unless a miracle occurred, Johann had, in a mere week, already surpassed him and become an opponent he could not defeat. Kaigal, the guild master of the Empire's strongest assassination guild, Poison of Nessos, muttered his astonishment at the absurd brat. Johann, meanwhile, was oblivious, overjoyed at having learned the technique and secured his meal ticket. Kaigal announced his departure at sunrise, declaring his teachings complete. Johann, surprised and a little dismayed, questioned the abrupt end, feeling he had only just begun to grasp the sword. But Kaigal insisted Johann already possessed everything necessary. admitting that in less than a week his student had surpassed him. Satisfied that his swordsmanship would live on, he granted Johann the freedom to live his life as he wished. Johann, still processing his master's impending departure, asked if he was truly leaving. Keigal explained his nomadic nature, clarifying that it was simply how he was, not merely due to his profession as an assassin. Johann then inquired about ominous signs, specifically the black wolf, which he had recently encountered. He recounted a subsequent dream where his head was severed and admitted he initially believed Keigal, when he first came for his head, was the omen. Keigal explained that had he killed Johann, that indeed would have been his ominous sign, as ill fortune manifested in many forms. Before leaving, Keigal offered one final piece of advice. Johann needed a weapon suited to his strength, ideally Danis steel. This legendary magic-imbued metal, he explained, was incredibly rare, its creation method lost to time, found only in ancient ruins. Johann, realizing the implications, asked about its cost. Keigal grimly stated that even a lifetime of savings wouldn't be enough, and it likely couldn't be bought with money at all. When Johann questioned why he recommended it then, Kai, exasperated by the constant mention of his profession, simply reiterated the importance of finding a suitable weapon. He then issued a grave warning. Danis steel had an unusual color, and if Johann ever saw someone wearing it, even from a distance, he should run without looking back. Ignoring one's limits, he cautioned, led to a short life. Johann promised to remember. Keigal's parting words were etched deep. Do not fight opponents you cannot beat. If it's dangerous, run. If you must fight, use any means necessary and kill without fail. Always survive. Johann vowed to heed his master's wisdom. As dawn approached and Keigal prepared to leave, a stark contrast unfolded at Ait's castle. Sir Karamov, still waiting for Lord Gazin, was being entertained by Philip's wife. She offered him expensive alcohol, which he disdainfully dismissed as tasting like Roman piss. Undeterred, she continued her advances, hinting at more exquisite drinks in Lord Gazin's bedroom and suggesting a cozy bedroom for them to share, promising a wonderful time. Karamov, growing visibly irritated, simply told her to get lost. When she persisted, he declared he was getting sick of this anyway and announced his intention to enjoy the entertainment known as slaughter. The sound of struggle and splattering blood soon filled the castle. From a distance, Johann watched in horror as flames engulfed the village, wondering why his home was burning. Lord Gazin Aitz, returning from his journey, could hardly believe his eyes. His subordinate confirmed the horrifying sight, urging him to return at once. But before he could reach his home, a figure emerged from the shadows, Sir Karamov, an imperial knight, his golden armor gleaming under the inferno. Karamov's voice dripped with disdain, mocking Gazin for his slowness and impatience. Karamov stood amidst the devastation, a chilling smile on his face. He accused Gazin of attempted assassination against the emperor and high treason, declaring that House Aitz would be eradicated by imperial decree. Gazin vehemently protested, knowing this was nothing more than a baseless purge, a convenient excuse to execute him. He refused to let Karamov do as he pleased, but it was too late. Karamov blew a horn, giving orders to retrieve the Aitz family seal, purge everyone in the territory, and erase the land from the map. Arriving at his estate, Gazin found it in ruins, the air thick with the smell of ash and blood. The purge was brutal. Imperial knights, like relentless hunters, slaughtered innocent villagers. Karamov himself interrogated a man, demanding the location of the pig's bastard son. When the man refused to answer, Karamov, with a cruel laugh, dispatched him, sending him to his god. Amidst the chaos and carnage, Johann Aitz, the young lord, arrived. He witnessed the horror firsthand, his village burning, his people dying. He found Father Valberg, severely injured, who confirmed the imperial troops were killing everyone on sight and feared that Lord Gazin had already been killed. Johann saw the devastation, heard the cries, and then a child's voice cut through the noise. It was Dell, crying for his father. Johann comforted the boy, assuring him he was safe and instructing him to stay with Father Valberg, away from the danger. With Dell safe, Johann turned back towards the burning castle, a grim determination set upon his face. Father Valberg, despite his wounds, tried to stop him, pleading with him to flee. Johann ignored the pleas. He saw a decree posted. Duke Gazin Aitz had been executed for treason, and anyone attempting to retrieve his corpse would suffer the same fate. As he approached the castle, Karamov spotted him. The imperial knight sneered, calling the boy Gazin's bastard son and asking if he had returned to die. He ordered his men to kill the boy, but Johann, despite his youth, moved with surprising agility, deflecting their attacks. A torrent of questions flooded Johan's mind. Why was he doing this? Why was he going back when every instinct screamed at him to run? Father Valberg was right, he should be fleeing. Going back would only mean a meaningless death. But then he saw him. Philip, his father, gravely wounded, barely clinging to life. Philip, with his last breaths, asked why his son had come back, urging him to run. He spoke of a gift he had wanted to give Johann for when he became a lord. Johann remembered his master's words. Understand the difference in skill level. If it gets dangerous, run. The opponent is the Emperor's knight. But another memory surfaced. Another teaching from his master. If you have to fight, then you must kill. He knew what he had to do. This was that time. He faced Karamov, who continued his taunts. Johann, however, was past words. He refused to exchange names, simply calling the Imperial Knight an asshole. Karamov, annoyed, reiterated that Johann should have kept running if he wanted to live. He challenged the boy, telling him to come at me. Johann's response was a roar of defiance. He didn't need to be told, he was going to fight anyway. The stage was set for a desperate, bloody confrontation, with a young lord standing against the might of the Empire, ready to avenge his family and his home. The air crackled with raw energy as the clash of steel resonated across the desolate landscape. Our protagonist, Johann Eitzes, found himself locked in a brutal dance of death with a formidable, heavily armored opponent. Each strike was met with another, a whirlwind of motion that sent sparks flying and the ground trembling. The towering figure, cloaked in menacing armor and radiating an aura of dark power, seemed to revel in the ferocity of the exchange. He found the duel exhilarating, a true test of might, and with a sneer, he recognized his foe, not just as a skilled warrior, but as the bastard son of Eitz. The opponent noted his prowess far surpassed anyone he had ever faced, including a warrior named Britz, and urged him to continue the deadly entertainment. Yet, beneath the surface of the opponent's taunts, a subtle shift was occurring. With a sudden, devastating blow, the protagonist managed to breach the seemingly impenetrable Danish steel armors that encased his foe. The armored knight reeled back, his glowing eyes widening in genuine disbelief. He roared, proclaiming such a feat impossible for a mere human, his voice laced with shock and a hint of fear. He questioned his adversary's very identity, bewildered by a strength that defied all his accumulated knowledge and experience. Despite the unexpected turn, the knight, a seasoned warrior, quickly regained his composure. He analyzed the fighting style, dismissing it as crude, born of pure instinct rather than refined technique. He saw a brute who swung widely, lacking the grace and precision of true swordsmanship, wondering aloud if his master, Gazen, had failed to impart proper training. Still, the undeniable power behind his unrefined blows stirred a growing sense of alarm, compelling the knight to decide that this dangerous encounter needed to end swiftly before his opponent could unleash another one of his deceptively simple, wide slashes. As anticipated, the protagonist wound up for another sweeping attack. But this time, the predictability was a mere feint. Just as the opponent braced himself, expecting the same wide arc, his movement shifted with lightning speed and deadly precision. The armored warrior was caught completely off guard, his mind racing as he recognized the sudden intricate transition in technique, Kegal's assassin swordsmanship. A chilling realization dawned upon him. His adversary had been deliberately concealing his true, masterful skill all along. He cursed his own arrogance, regretting the moment his confidence had allowed his guard to drop. The hidden blade found its mark, and the powerful knight crumpled, defeated. The protagonist stood over his vanquished foe, the air heavy with the aftermath of their brutal struggle. He looked down at the heavily wounded knight and, with a quiet intensity, demanded to understand the motive behind the bloodshed. The knight, struggling for breath amidst his injuries, revealed his unwavering fealty to the Emperor. He explained that the Holy Empire was teetering on the brink of chaos, and the Emperor had taken up the imperial sword to forcefully restore order. Even in defeat, the knight expressed a grudging admiration for his opponent's immense strength, confessing that in all his decades crossing battlefields and fighting countless knights, he had never encountered anyone with such raw power. He extended an offer, a tempting proposition for him to join the Empire. He painted a vivid picture of a life of unparalleled luxury, endless gold, vast and fertile lands, and the prestigious appointment as an imperial knight. He insisted the Emperor desperately needed such a talent to solidify his rule. The protagonist listened, the echoes of the knight's promises stirring faint memories of the very dreams he once held dear, a life of wealth and status. Yet, as he truly considered them now, a profound emptiness settled within him. His resolve hardened, and with a firm voice, he refused the offer. His decision was rooted in the horrific memory of his own family, mercilessly slaughtered alongside innocent serfs by the very forces the knight served. The armored warrior, aghast at the refusal, scoffed at the concern for serfs, dismissing them as insignificant insects and weak vermin. He ranted, proclaiming the brutal truth of their world. The strong were destined to drink the blood of the weak, a law as fundamental as existence itself. A deep, simmering anger ignited in the protagonist's eyes. He uttered a quiet apology to his unseen master, a grim acknowledgement that he could no longer rein in his surging power. With a primal roar, he unleashed a final, devastating attack, his voice thundering with indignant fury. He challenged the knight's self-proclaimed right to judge who deserved to live or die, especially when invoking the emperor's name or deeming lives worthless. The knight, utterly overwhelmed, met his absolute end under the protagonist's unstoppable force. As the last vestiges of life faded from the defeated knight, he managed a final, guttural curse. He branded his vanquisher a fool and issued a dire warning. By breaking the emperor's sword, he had irrevocably sealed his own fate, destined to know only unending suffering from that moment on. The protagonist stood amidst the silent devastation, the echoes of the knight's words hanging heavy in the air. He reflected on a world where death was an accepted natural part of existence. He remembered a time when his sole focus had been money, a desperate bid for survival. But that was before they had butchered and burned his family and neighbors, transforming him forever. With an unshakable conviction, he affirmed his path, declaring that even if the entire world were to become his enemy, he had simply done what had to be done. He would never regret his actions, no matter what anyone said or thought. With a fierce, determined gaze, Johann Eitz looked forward, proclaiming, "This is how I live." The future, now irrevocably altered by his choices, promised a relentless journey fraught with peril and conflict, a testament to his unwavering resolve. The air crackled with raw energy as the clash of steel resonated across the desolate landscape. Our protagonist, Johann Eitz, found himself locked in a brutal dance of death with a formidable, heavily armored opponent. Each strike was met with another, a whirlwind of motion that sent sparks flying and the ground trembling. The towering figure, cloaked in menacing armor and radiating an aura of dark power, seemed to revel in the ferocity of the exchange. He found the duel exhilarating, a true test of might, and with a sneer he recognized his foe, not just as a skilled warrior, but as the bastard son of Eitz. The opponent noted his prowess far surpassed anyone he had ever faced, including a warrior named Britz, and urged him to continue the deadly entertainment. Yet, beneath the surface of the opponent's taunts, a subtle shift was occurring. With a sudden, devastating blow, the protagonist managed to breach the seemingly impenetrable Danish steel armors that encased his foe. The armored knight reeled back, his glowing eyes widening in genuine disbelief. He roared, proclaiming such a feat impossible for a mere human, his voice laced with shock and a hint of fear. He questioned his adversary's very identity, bewildered by a strength that defied all his accumulated knowledge and experience. Despite the unexpected turn, the knight, a seasoned warrior, quickly regained his composure. He analyzed the fighting style, dismissing it as crude, born of pure instinct rather than refined technique. He saw a brute who swung widely, lacking the grace and precision of true swordsmanship, wondering aloud if his master, Gason, had failed to impart proper training. Still, the undeniable power behind his unrefined blows stirred a growing sense of alarm, compelling the knight to decide that this dangerous encounter needed to end swiftly before his opponent could unleash another one of his deceptively simple, wide slashes. As anticipated, the protagonist wound up for another sweeping attack. But this time, the predictability was a mere feint. Just as the opponent braced himself, expecting the same wide arc, his movement shifted with lightning speed and deadly precision. The armored warrior was caught completely off guard, his mind racing as he recognized the sudden, intricate transition in technique, Kegel's assassin swordsmanship. A chilling realization dawned upon him. His adversary had been deliberately concealing his true, masterful skill all along. He cursed his own arrogance, regretting the moment his confidence had allowed his guard to drop. The hidden blade found its mark, and the powerful knight crumpled, defeated. The protagonist stood over his vanquished foe, the air heavy with the aftermath of their brutal struggle. He looked down at the heavily wounded knight and, with a quiet intensity, demanded to understand the motive behind the bloodshed. The knight, struggling for breath amidst his injuries, revealed his unwavering fealty to the emperor. He explained that the Holy Empire was teetering on the brink of chaos, and the emperor had taken up the imperial sword to forcefully restore order. Even in defeat, the knight expressed a grudging admiration for his opponent's immense strength, confessing that in all his decades crossing battlefields and fighting countless knights, He had never encountered anyone with such raw power. He extended an offer, a tempting proposition for him to join the empire. He painted a vivid picture of a life of unparalleled luxury, endless gold, vast and fertile lands, and the prestigious appointment as an imperial knight. He insisted the emperor desperately needed such a talent to solidify his rule. The protagonist listened, the echoes of the knight's promises stirring faint memories of the very dreams he once held dear. A life of wealth and status. Yet, as he truly considered them now, a profound emptiness settled within him. His resolve hardened, and with a firm voice, he refused the offer. His decision was rooted in the horrific memory of his own family, mercilessly slaughtered alongside innocent serfs by the very forces the knight served. The armored warrior, aghast at the refusal, scoffed at the concern for serfs, dismissing them as insignificant insects and weak vermin. He ranted, proclaiming the brutal truth of their world. The strong were destined to drink the blood of the weak, a law as fundamental as existence itself. A deep, simmering anger ignited in the protagonist's eyes. He uttered a quiet apology to his unseen master, a grim acknowledgement that he could no longer rein in his surging power. With a primal roar, he unleashed a final, devastating attack, his voice thundering with indignant fury. He challenged the knight's self-proclaimed right to judge who deserved to live or die, especially when invoking the emperor's name or deeming lives worthless. The knight, utterly overwhelmed, met his absolute end under the protagonist's unstoppable force. The grim news of Sir Karamab's death hung heavy in the air as Jane interrogated the trembling soldier. He recounted a chilling tale. A mysterious figure, later identified as Johann Eitz, had suddenly appeared, mercilessly beating all the guards and, with his bare hands, taken Sir Karamab's head. Jane, however, was skeptical, demanding proof of the body. The soldier, equally bewildered, could only stammer that the corpse was nowhere to be found. With the pursuit party ready, Jane gave her orders. Every troop was to chase down Johann Eitz, a man she branded a filthy traitor to his own bloodline and the suspected murderer of Sir Karamab. She warned them of his immense strength, describing how he could tear through Dana's steel with his bare hands, cautioning them never to face him alone. This hunt, she declared, was to be treated as if they were tracking a dragon. Roads around the territory were to be sealed, and they would relentlessly drive him all night until he was exhausted. Meanwhile, Johann Eitz was already making his desperate escape. A flashback revealed Sir Karamab, gravely wounded, urging Johann to flee. He directed Johann to his stable, about 500 paces northwest of the hunting grounds, where he would find a warhorse named Philip. Johann was to mount Philip and ride, for he had to survive at all costs. Following these instructions, Johann found the majestic Philip, a warhorse with a striking appearance. He quietly thanked the loyal beast before mounting him and galloping into the night. It wasn't long before the pursuit party caught sight of Johann. One soldier noticed the distinct glow of Dana's steel, confirming their target was nearby. They quickly realized he was escaping on horseback, and a hail of arrows followed him. Johann rode tirelessly through the entire night, eventually outdistancing his pursuers and arriving deep within the eerie black forest. He stopped in a secluded part of the forest, deeming it deep enough to ensure privacy. Despite Sir Karamab being a twisted man, Johann felt it was only right to bury his body. He observed the expensive armor Karamab wore, a valuable asset he couldn't carry now but planned to retrieve later. For the moment, he took only the sword, burying the rest of the equipment. Johann understood the gravity of his situation. With the Emperor's knight dead, the entire empire would soon be after him. His life, already fraught with suffering, had only grown more perilous. Exhaustion weighed heavily on Johann, his arms trembling from the ordeal. He decided to rest, but his respite was cut short by the sudden appearance of a large black wolf. In his current worn-out state, he knew he stood no chance. He couldn't even properly wield the sword. His only option was to reach his horse and flee. Just as he was contemplating his next move, he heard the chilling shouts of the pursuit party. They had found his horse, confirming he was nearby. Johann was trapped, a monstrous black wolf in front, and the relentless soldiers closing in from behind. He felt this might truly be the end for him. But then, an unexpected turn of events unfolded. The black wolf, instead of attacking him, turned its fury on the approaching soldiers, tearing through their ranks and clearing a path. Seizing this desperate chance, Johann pushed through his fear and exhaustion, running past the bloody chaos. He fled, leaving the burning Eitz village behind, a lone figure watched by the shadowy black wolf from the edge of the forest. The grim news of Sir Karamab's death hung heavy in the air as Jane interrogated a trembling soldier. He recounted a chilling tale. A mysterious figure, later identified as Johann Eitz, had suddenly appeared, mercilessly beating all the guards and, with his bare hands, taken Sir Karamov's head. Jane, however, was skeptical, demanding proof of the body. The soldier, equally bewildered, could only stammer that the corpse was nowhere to be found. With the pursuit party ready, Jane gave her orders. Every troop was to chase down Johann Eitz, a man she branded a filthy traitor to his own bloodline and the suspected murderer of Sir Karamov. She warned them of his immense strength, describing how he could tear through Dana's steel with his bare hands, cautioning them never to face him alone. This hunt, she declared, was to be treated as if they were tracking a dragon. Roads around the territory were to be sealed, and they would relentlessly drive him all night until he was exhausted. Meanwhile, Johann Eitz was already making his desperate escape. A flashback revealed Sir Karamov, gravely wounded, urging Johann to flee. He directed Johann to his stable, about 500 paces northwest of the hunting grounds, where he would find a warhorse named Philip. Johann was to mount Philip and ride, for he had to survive at all costs. Following these instructions, Johann found the majestic Philip, a warhorse with a striking appearance. He quietly thanked the loyal beast before mounting him and galloping into the night. It wasn't long before the pursuit party caught sight of Johann. One soldier noticed the distinct glow of Dana's steel, confirming their target was nearby. They quickly realized he was escaping on horseback, and a hail of arrows followed him. Johann rode tirelessly through the entire night, eventually outdistancing his pursuers and arriving deep within the eerie black forest. He stopped in a secluded part of the forest, deeming it deep enough to ensure privacy. Despite Sir Karamov being a twisted man, Johann felt it was only right to bury his body. He observed the expensive armor Karamov wore, a valuable asset he couldn't carry now, but planned to retrieve later. For the moment, he took only the sword, burying the rest of the equipment. Johann understood the gravity of his situation. With the Emperor's knight dead, the entire empire would soon be after him. His life, already fraught with suffering, had only grown more perilous. Exhaustion weighed heavily on Johann, his arms trembling from the ordeal. Our protagonist, Johann, was at his absolute limit, cornered and utterly exhausted after 3 grueling days. He hadn't eaten, slept, or rested properly, constantly hounded by the relentless wolves of Akaten. He had narrowly escaped death countless times, fending off their swarming packs until he no longer had the strength to even lift his sword. The way out was completely blocked, and he was trapped, facing certain capture and execution. Just as despair threatened to consume him, Johann spotted a trade wagon accompanied by armed escorts. A desperate plan formed in his mind. He would disguise himself as a peddler, hoping to blend in with their group and slip past the formidable checkpoint ahead. The trade caravan, identified as the Katana Trading Company and led by a cautious merchant named Eldans, soon approached the checkpoint. A heavily armed cavalryman stood guard, a sight that immediately put Eldans's mercenaries on edge. Eldans, however, recognized the true danger. He observed the knight's full-plate armor, warhorse, and a sword forged from rare Danish steel, understanding that this single individual possessed the capability to decimate his entire crew. He ordered his men to prepare for battle, but decided to assess the situation himself first. Eldans approached the imposing figure, introducing himself and his company. To his surprise, the knight removed his helmet, revealing the face of a catfolk. Johann, maintaining his disguise, quickly explained that he had been attacked by bandits and had lost everything, which accounted for his disheveled appearance. He asked Eldans to assure his wary mercenaries that he meant no harm. Eldans, a seasoned peddler who always prepared for the worst, chuckled, understanding Johann's caution. Eldans approached the imposing figure, introducing himself and his company. To his surprise, the knight removed his helmet, revealing the face of a catfolk. Johann, maintaining his disguise, quickly explained that he had been attacked by bandits and had lost everything, which accounted for his disheveled appearance. He asked Eldans to assure his wary mercenaries that he meant no harm. Eldans, a seasoned peddler who always prepared for the worst, chuckled, understanding Johann's caution. Seizing the opportunity, Johann requested to travel with the caravan, offering his strength as a guard in exchange for food and a place to rest, claiming the bandit attack had left him penniless. Eldans, finding Johann strong and seemingly harmless, agreed to take him along to Marseille, their destination. However, Eldans secretly instructed his mercenaries to keep a close eye on Johann and to kill him if he made any suspicious moves. Johann, relieved to have found passage, was momentarily surprised by the mention of Marseille. Eldans, finding Johann strong and seemingly harmless, agreed to take him along to Marseille, their destination. As they continued, Johann's relief was palpable. He just needed to get past the checkpoint. But his heart sank when they arrived, and the guards announced themselves as the very wolves of Akiton who were hunting him. They demanded an inspection, explicitly stating they were searching for a runaway traitor. Johann knew then that this checkpoint was set up specifically for him. A wolf soldier ordered Johann to remove his helmet and show his face. Panicked, Johann tried to make an excuse about a facial condition, but the soldier grew aggressive, mocking him. Just as Johann braced himself for a fight, Eldans intervened forcefully. Panicked, Johann tried to make an excuse about a facial condition, but the soldier grew aggressive, mocking him. Just as Johann braced himself for a fight, Eldans intervened forcefully. He declared his identity as part of the influential katana trading company and expressed outrage at being suspected. When the soldier tried to invoke imperial orders, Eldans cut him off, threatening to file a direct complaint with the captain of the Marcel branch. He declared his identity as part of the influential katana trading company and expressed outrage at being suspected. When the soldier tried to invoke imperial orders, Eldans cut him off, threatening to file a direct complaint with the captain of the Marcel branch. Intimidated, the wolf soldier reluctantly ordered his men to clear the way. Johann breathed a sigh of relief, having narrowly avoided a direct confrontation. Unbeknownst to the caravan, the wolves of Akiton were not deterred. Hidden on a nearby hill, they prepared to launch a surprise attack, planning to surround the unsuspecting travelers and strike them all at once. Later that night, as the caravan made camp, Eldans assigned night watch, but kindly told Johann he could rest. Overcome with gratitude, Johann finally lay down, reflecting on how long it had been since he could truly sleep. Yet, his respite was short-lived. Unbeknownst to the caravan, the wolves of Akiton were not deterred. Yet, his respite was short-lived. Unbeknownst to the caravan, the wolves of Akiton were not deterred. Hidden on a nearby hill, they prepared to launch a surprise attack, planning to surround the unsuspecting travelers and strike them all at once. The night was about to turn deadly. Kim Johann found himself in a familiar nightmare, reliving his time in the army. He was being commended for his outstanding tactical sense during a battalion-level training exercise, having successfully executed a defense-in-depth strategy against a much larger enemy force with only a small number of troops. He was awarded a commendation and reward leave, and in that moment he felt a strange sense of belonging, believing the army truly suited him because he had diligently studied strategy and tactics in advance. However, the dream quickly soured. The army was also a place of outdated top-down culture, murderous duty shifts, and extreme work conditions that swung between scorching heat and freezing cold. Worst of all, the paychecks were minuscule, barely enough to survive. He found himself trapped, screaming, desperate to escape the suffocating grip of this military nightmare. He woke with a start, his body aching, the vivid memory of the dream lingering. Confused, he looked around, realizing he was no longer in the army but in a perilous wilderness. Suddenly, the sounds of an impending attack jolted him fully awake. "Those damn bastards are after me again," he thought, dismayed, having believed he was finally safe. He knew he had to warn the mercenaries he was traveling with. "Enemy ambush," he cried out, his voice cutting through the night. Just moments before the alert, the mercenaries had been bickering. Gamson complained about being overworked while the armored cavalryman, our boy, was not pulling his weight on sentry duty. Goran, the leader, sharply silenced him, refusing to entrust guard duty to someone they barely knew. He voiced his concern that the stranger might slit their throats and steal their supplies if given the chance. Goran warned Gamson that if he couldn't grasp what truly mattered, he wouldn't last long in their line of work. Gamson, for his part, had joined the mercenaries to escape a mundane life and become a real man. But he now felt surrounded by idiots who would freeze at the first sign of trouble. His frustration boiled over, leading to a heated exchange with Goran. Their argument was abruptly interrupted by a volley of arrows. "Enemy ambush!" our boy yelled again, urging everyone to get down. The rain of arrows ceased, leaving a tense silence. Goran quickly checked on his men, finding Can hit but safe, hiding under the wagon with Eldans. However, Gamson was nowhere to be found. Goran, ignoring our boy's concern for the missing man, immediately ordered Khan and himself to form a circular defensive line around the wagon. He stressed the importance of sticking together, as they didn't know the direction of the attack. Our boy offered his tactical experience, requesting a shield, but Goran dismissed him, reminding him that they barely had enough for themselves and he should worry about his own survival. Our boy, realizing he was completely distrusted, felt a pang of frustration. The attackers, whom our boy observed were not the familiar wolves of Akiton, but possibly a bandit gang, charged forward. Goran, confident in their numbers, rallied his men to push back the enemy. The fight began in earnest, but the mercenaries were quickly overwhelmed. In the chaos, Gamson was brutally cut down. Goran screamed his name in despair, then lunged at the attackers with a desperate roar. Witnessing the grim reality of the battle, our boy's eyes glowed with an eerie blue light and a surge of purple energy enveloped his arm. He moved with impossible speed, his sword a blur of motion. One of the attackers was cleanly sliced in half, a gruesome display that stunned both allies and enemies. The mercenaries gasped, realizing the sword, adorned with strange runes, was absorbing blood, a clear sign of a demonic weapon. The attackers faltered, despairing that they could not possibly defeat someone armed with such a monstrous blade. Seizing the moment, our boy declared his identity. "I am Johann Yaitz of House Yaitz." He demanded to know who dared attack him. The revelation sent a wave of terror through the bandits. They had stumbled into a fight with a noble house. Internally, our boy chuckled, noting he had merely tweaked the name Yaitz to Yaitz. The attackers, completely demoralized, immediately surrendered, addressing him as Sir Johann. He then turned to Goran, his voice firm, and commanded him to bind the remaining attackers. He added, with a chilling undertone, that Goran was free to cut down anyone who resisted. The mercenaries gathered, their faces etched with worry as they discussed their recent companion. They had treated him poorly, assuming he was merely a well-equipped wanderer, and now, having learned his true noble status, they feared his reprisal. Their leader, Eldens, decided he had to smooth things over. Approaching Johann formally as Sir Johann of House Yaitz, he apologized for the rough night and offered a repayment for his troubles. Johann, however, dismissed the offer, simply stating his gladness that Eldens was safe. He then casually requested a shield from Eldens next time, a subtle but clear indication of his expectations. Eldens, surprised by the young noble's unexpected demeanor, readily agreed, his respect for him now solidified. Johann then asked for the mercenaries' help in interrogating the captured bandits. Eldens readily consented, but, feeling the weight of Johann's revealed status, suggested he adopt a more formal tone to ease their minds. Johann, with a slight look of discomfort, conceded. The interrogation began with Johann demanding to know the bandits' identities and reasons for their attack. Their leader revealed they were once private soldiers of House Britz, a noble house that had been completely annihilated months prior. He recounted how their house was suddenly attacked on fabricated charges of treason against the emperor, and every man, woman, and child was slaughtered without any real proof. The attackers, he explained, were the notorious Wolves of Akiton. Despite their desperate resistance, they were ultimately defeated when the noble executioner joined the fray, forcing them to retreat and become outlaws. Hearing this, Johann immediately recognized the noble executioner as Karamov, the emperor's brutal hunting dog, whom he had recently encountered. The bandit leader, seeking to justify their actions, profusely apologized for his crimes, explaining that they had been relentlessly pursued by the imperial army and abandoned by the northern territories, leaving them no choice but to resort to banditry for survival. He emphasized that their target was purely the valuable goods carried by trading companies. Eldens, however, bristled with anger, reminding the bandit leader of the crucial role trust played in trading companies and the immense damage bandits inflicted. Johann intervened, calming Eldens. The bandit leader's story resonated deeply with Johann. He recalled Karamov's earlier declaration of all for the emperor during their fight. It became clear to him that there was no genuine treason. The emperor had merely used it as a pretext to purge nobles and unleash Karamov, manipulating the narrative for his own gain. A profound hatred for Karamov ignited within him. Johann realized that these bandits, like himself, were victims of a ruthless power struggle. Yet, they had still become bandits, and he wrestled with the dilemma of what to do with them. Eldens, ever pragmatic, offered to beat more information out of them, but Johann declined, asserting they had gleaned all they needed. One of the mercenaries, Gamson, then brazenly suggested beating the bandits to death. Eldens, however, quickly stopped him, explaining that since the bandits had surrendered to Sir Johann, they had no right to punish them. He then sharply reminded Gamson of his own cowardice, having abandoned his comrades and fled, effectively silencing the mercenary. The bandits, witnessing this exchange, began to plead for their lives, promising never to repeat their misdeeds. Eldens, offering to execute them if Johann gave the word, awaited his decision. After a thoughtful pause, Johann ordered them to be disarmed and released. This unexpected act of mercy shocked both the mercenaries and the bandits. Johann then addressed the freed men, acknowledging their difficult circumstances, understanding that they likely knew no other work than wielding weapons. However, he firmly stated that robbing caravans was unacceptable. He drew a parallel to his own life, admitting he too had only learned skills for survival. He pointed out that even his own mercenary companions, like Goran, worked for pay, using their skills to make a living. With a stern look, Johann told the bandits he was letting them live, urging them to learn skills and find a way to make a living. Overwhelmed with gratitude, the bandits thanked the knight profusely, vowing never to forget his kindness. Eldons, deciding it was time for his own group to move on, expressed his desire to avoid any further entanglements. Johann, appearing utterly exhausted, agreed, clearly in need of rest. The group then decided to make a stop at Rootsbeck village for a brief respite before continuing their journey to Marseille. Upon their arrival at Rootsbeck village, Eldons was warmly greeted by the village chief, an old acquaintance. The chief, delighted to see him, inquired about their journey. Eldons recounted their encounter with the bandit gang, lamenting how banditry had escalated since the emperor began his increasingly erratic behavior. The chief, however, quickly chided Eldons for speaking ill of the emperor. Eldons, unfazed, proudly declared that they had transported their goods safely, all thanks to the noble who had traveled with them. The chief then recalled a previous noble who had passed through weeks ago, only to be exposed as a fraud whom he had personally beaten and driven out. Eldons quickly reassured him that this time was different. His companion was brave and very upright, having protected them from bandits without demanding any reward. The chief was utterly astonished that a noble would perform such a favor without seeking monetary compensation. He acknowledged that Eldons was not one to spread falsehoods. Realizing the potential benefit, the chief mused that having a true knight in their village would greatly enhance public safety, especially given the rising bandit threat. Seizing the opportunity, he eagerly invited the knight to stay for a few days, then quickly amended it to a few weeks, offering genuine rest. He reiterated the pressing issue of bandits in the area. Eldons politely declined on his companion's behalf, stating they couldn't impose. The chief, however, dismissed the notion of imposition, joking about their long-standing, unashamedly haggling relationship. He then expressed his keen desire to meet this precious noble Eldons spoke of. Meanwhile, Johann was discovered looking utterly famished and weary, appearing about to die on the street like a beggar. Eldons approached him with concern, asking what was wrong. Johann then offered Eldons a small pouch, instructing him to take it. It contained the money seized from the bandits, which they had acquired by selling off the bandits' properties and weapons. It was a decent sum. Eldons, surprised, asked if Johann had taken any for himself. Johann replied that he had not, stating that Eldons was the one who had captured them. Johann then instructed Eldons to take the money and distribute it among his men, a gesture that left Eldons utterly dumbfounded. Eldons protested, insisting the amount was far too much and that all spoils should rightfully belong to Johann, as the bandits had surrendered to him. Johann, however, maintained it was fine, revealing he had already taken his own share, a mere handful of coins. Eldons stared in disbelief at the meager amount. Johann, with a wry smile, admitted it pained him to give up the money, but he considered it 100 times better to spend a small sum to gain the companionship of a mercenary band than to face the wolves of Aquitaine alone. He emphasized that they had fought together, making them comrades in arms, and this act was simply to earn some goodwill. With that, Johann declared he would be leaving. Eldons was profoundly moved by Johann's selflessness, recognizing it as the true dignity of a knight. He loudly proclaimed to his men that Sir Johann had shown immense generosity by distributing the proceeds from the spoils of war among them. The mercenaries, initially surprised, quickly lined up, eager to receive their share, cheering his name. Back in his room, Johann finally found some rest, his eyes closing in exhaustion. Deep in sleep, his eyes suddenly snapped open, glowing red. A shadowy figure with a gleaming knife stood over him, poised to strike, and the knight's peace was shattered. The night before a critical attack, Johann distributed a small portion of the spoils of war to his mercenaries, carefully keeping the valuable silver coins for himself while still managing to secure their goodwill. He congratulated himself on his cunning, believing he had come out ahead. An unexpected encounter awaited him when a noble approached, addressing him as Sir Johann. The noble, recognizing him from his travels with another Sir Eldons, offered him the best room in the inn, with all expenses covered by the Katana Trading Company. Our boy accepted, pleased that the situation had turned out to his advantage. The noble, recognizing him from his travels with another Sir Eldons, offered him the best room in the inn, with all expenses covered by the Katana Trading Company. Our boy accepted, pleased that the situation had turned out to his advantage. The noble, recognizing him from his travels with another Sir Eldons, offered him the best room in the inn, with all expenses covered by the Katana Trading Company. Our boy accepted, pleased. Elsewhere, a mercenary named Gamson fumed, complaining loudly about receiving nothing. Johann had withheld his share, explaining that Gamson had hidden during the fight, earning him no compensation. Gamson felt unfairly singled out, his anger simmering beneath the surface. Gamson felt unfairly singled out, his anger simmering beneath the surface. The simple luxuries of license of rest. The simple luxuries of a soft bed and hot water, once taken for granted in his noble past, now brought immense joy. He reflected on the harshness of life as a wanderer, remembering how the mad emperor had raised his territory, making him just one of many victims. Though he survived, he pondered if he should have accepted Karamov's offer, knowing the imperial army relentlessly hunted him. He needed a new strategy. A memory surfaced. The mercenaries' reluctance to challenge Eldons, a merchant, suggested their wariness of the powerful katana trading company he represented. He recalled lessons from his youth about trading companies, how they shared information and funds across borders. A powerful trading company. With lightning speed he countered, kicking the intruder with brutal force. The assailant cried out, realizing too late that the man he had chosen to attack was far from ordinary. 5 minutes earlier, in another section of the inn, a different plot was underway. Mercenaries Gamson and Vulin had been discussing their scheme to steal the noble's sword, a weapon Gamson had seen slice a man in half. They believed the knight would be powerless without it. Their accomplice, Pell, was already outside, admiring the warhorse he was stealing. Their confidence shattered abruptly when Gamson's severely wounded body was violently thrown into their room. His final gasps for help quickly faded, leaving Vulin and Pra, another mercenary, paralyzed with terror. Vulin, recognizing the dire situation, frantically urged Pra to flee. Pra, however, was too shocked to comprehend. Our boy then appeared, his ominous presence demanding to know their identities. Vulin desperately tried to make Pra escape, explaining Gamson was dead and the noble might pursue them. But Pra, clinging to a stubborn loyalty, refused to abandon Vulin. As Pra stood defiant, refusing to leave Vulin, his form transformed, his eyes glowing red, radiating an infernal rage that promised swift and brutal retribution. Vulin, recognizing the dire situation, frantically urged Pra to flee. Pra, however, was too shocked to comprehend. Our boy then appeared, his ominous presence demanding to know their identities. Vulin desperately tried. Vulin, recognizing the dire situation, frantically urged Pra to flee. Pra, however, was too shocked to comprehend. Our boy then appeared, his ominous presence demanding to know their identities. Vulin desperately tried to make Pra escape, explaining Gamson was dead and the noble might pursue them. But Pra, clinging to a stubborn loyalty, refused to abandon Vulin. As Pra stood defiant, refusing to leave Vulin, his form transformed, his eyes glowing red, radiating an infernal rage that promised swift and brutal retribution. Vulin, recognizing the dire situation, frantically urged Pra to flee. Pra, however, was too shocked to comprehend. Our boy then appeared, his ominous presence demanding to know their identity. Vulin, however, was too shocked to comprehend to flee. Pra, however, was too shocked to comprehend to flee. Pra, however, was too shocked to comprehend. Our boy then appeared, his ominous presence demanding to know their identities. Vulin desperately tried to make Pra escape, explaining Gamson was dead and the noble might pursue shocked to comprehend. Vulin however, was too shocked to comprehend. Our Braha escape, explaining Gamson was dead and Vulin, his form transformed, his eyes glowing red, radiating an infernal rage that promised swift and brutal retribution. Vulin, recognizing the dire situation, Fraha, however, was too shocked to comprehend. Our Bulin desperately tried to make Pra escape, explaining Gamson was dead. The Holy Empire's southern outskirts witnessed a grim sight. 2 knights, having just finished impaling a warning notice into the ground, reflected on its chilling decree. The notice condemned individuals and their families to hanging for the theft of a noble's property, in this case, a mere chicken and 3 eggs. Such a disproportionate punishment for a minor offense left even the hardened knights unnerved. Such a disproportionate punishment for a minor offense left even the hardened knights unnerved. The notice condemned individuals and their families to hanging for the theft of a noble's property, in this case, a mere chicken and 3 eggs. Such a disproportionate punishment for a minor offense left even the hardened knights unnerved. Such a disproportionate punishment for a minor offense left even the hardened knights unnerved. Meanwhile, a bustling merchant named Eldens, engrossed in his meal, received troubling news. Gamson, a member of his mercenary band, had been apprehended attempting to pilfer belongings from a certain Sir Johann Yates. This development was particularly inconvenient for Eldens, who had hoped to persuade the noble to accompany their caravan to Marseille. Quickly, Eldens ordered Gamson's capture, instructing his men to feign ignorance of the incident. He steeled his resolve, reminding himself of the many crises he had navigated as a merchant for the Katana Trading Company. He vowed that this, too, would pass, though he began to ponder contingency plans should the nobleman prove particularly troublesome. He vowed that this, too, would pass, though he began to ponder contingency plans should the nobleman prove particularly troublesome. He steeled his resolve, reminding himself of the many crises he had navigated as a merchant for the katana trading company. He vowed that this, too, would pass, though he began to ponder contingency plans should the nobleman prove particularly troublesome. He vowed that this, too, would pass, though he began to ponder contingency plans should the nobleman prove particularly troublesome. Later that evening, a village meeting was abruptly interrupted by a frantic villager. The troublemakers, as he called them, had been caught trying to steal from our boy. The village chief, enraged by the news, immediately demanded that tributes be gathered for him, along with a slave, and ordered the execution of the culprits in front of the knight. The villagers erupted in protest, desperate to save their children. The chief, however, silenced them with a furious roar, reminding them of the emperor's brutal edict. He recounted how entire families had been wiped out for trivial offenses, like demanding unpaid wages in the form of a chicken and a few eggs. He recounted how entire families had been wiped out for trivial offenses, like demanding unpaid wages in the form of a chicken and a few eggs. He argued that all nobles were cut from the same cloth, and this knight would undoubtedly seek a harsh reprisal, perhaps even severing the hands of every villager, all in the name of a knight's honor. He argued that all nobles were cut from the same cloth, and this knight would undoubtedly seek a harsh reprisal, perhaps even severing the hands of every villager, all in the name of a knight's honor. He argued that all nobles were cut from the same cloth, and this knight would undoubtedly seek a harsh reprisal, perhaps even severing the hands of every villager, all in the name of a knight's honor. He argued that all nobles were cut from the same cloth, and this knight would undoubtedly seek a harsh reprisal, perhaps even severing the hands of every villager. Dismissing any hope of intervention from Count Jarpan, he urged his people to accept their grim reality. They had to make the first move, sacrificing a few to save the many. Dismissing any hope of intervention from Count Jarpan, he urged his people to accept their grim reality. They had to make the first move, sacrificing a few to save the many. Dismissing any hope of intervention from Count Jarpan, he urged his people to accept their grim reality. They had to make the first move, sacrificing a few to save the many. Dismissing any hope of intervention from Count Jarpan, he urged his people to accept their grim reality. They had to make the first move, sacrificing a few to save the many. The village, he declared, would live if those kids died. The village, he declared, would live if those kids died. The village, he declared, would live if those kids died. The village, he declared, would live if those kids died. It was a heartbreaking decision, he confessed, but one made for the village's survival. It was a heartbreaking decision, he confessed, but one made for the village's survival. It was a heartbreaking decision, he confessed, but one made for the village's survival. It was a heartbreaking decision, he confessed, but one made for the village's survival. Back at the scene, our protagonist, now bound and surrounded by the terrified villagers, observed the commotion. Back at the scene, our protagonist, now bound and surrounded by the terrified villagers, observed the commotion. He realized the assassins he initially suspected were just frightened villagers who had foolishly attempted to steal his conspicuous, expensive-looking sword. He realized the assassins he initially suspected were just frightened villagers who had foolishly attempted to steal his conspicuous, expensive-looking sword. He mused that perhaps he bore some responsibility for openly displaying such a tempting item. He mused that perhaps he bore some responsibility for openly displaying such a tempting item. He mused that perhaps he bore some responsibility for openly displaying such a tempting item. Deciding to merely scare them before letting them go, he was soon approached by the village chief, who nervously inquired about his well-being. The knight, with a chilling tone, stated he was not all right. He then questioned if it was customary in Rutsbek village to welcome guests by holding blades to their throats and plundering their possessions. He then questioned if it was customary in Rutsbek village to welcome guests by holding blades to their throats and plundering their possessions. The chief, overcome with panic, prostrated himself, profusely apologizing and accepting full blame for failing to control the idiots, addressing the noble repeatedly. The chief, overcome with panic, prostrated himself, profusely apologizing and accepting full blame for failing to control the idiots, addressing the noble repeatedly. Our boy, seemingly satisfied, declared the scare sufficient and instructed them to be more careful in the future, dismissing them all. But the chief, misinterpreting his words, saw an opportunity to demonstrate his loyalty. He announced his intention to personally execute the wretches and present their heads as tribute to the knight's honor. The protagonist, horrified by this unexpected turn, tried to intervene, insisting he had no such intention. The chief, however, was resolute. believing those who sullied a noble's honor deserved death. As a villager pleaded with the chief, begging him to spare his son, the chief brought his axe down. As a villager pleaded with the chief, begging him to spare his son, the chief brought his axe down. In a flash he moved, catching the descending axe blade with his bare hand, blood blooming across his palm. In a flash he moved, catching the descending axe blade with his bare hand, blood blooming across his palm. He looked at the stunned villagers and declared that if they truly wished for the criminals to pay, it should be with money, not lives. He looked at the stunned villagers and declared that if they truly wished for the criminals to pay, it should be with money, not lives. He looked at the stunned villagers and declared that if they truly wished for the criminals to pay, it should be with money, not lives. Was honor, he questioned, truly more precious than human life? He commanded them to untie the captives and disperse. He commanded them to untie the captives and disperse. He commanded them to untie the captives and disperse. He commanded them to untie the captives and disperse. The villagers, witnessing this unexpected act of mercy, were awestruck. The villagers, witnessing this unexpected act of mercy, were awestruck. The chief, Eldons, and the others showered him with apologies and gratitude, praising his honorable decision and vowing never to forget his kindness. The chief, Eldons, and the others showered him with apologies and gratitude, praising his honorable decision and vowing never to forget his kindness. The chief, Eldons, and the others showered him with apologies and gratitude, praising his honorable decision and vowing never to forget his kindness. Our boy, addressing the young culprits, told them they were lucky. Another night would have ensured a horrific end. Gamson, still bound, grumbled about his bad luck and continued to boast about his future escape. The knight then approached Gamson, calmly advising him to relax his body to make things easier. Gamson, puzzled, asked what he meant. Without another word, he brought his blade down, severing Gamson's hands. Without another word, he brought his blade down, severing Gamson's hands. Without another word, he brought his blade down, severing Gamson's hands. With blood splattered across his face and sword, the protagonist stood, his eyes glowing intensely, a chilling testament to his own brutal brand of justice. With blood splattered across his face and sword, the protagonist stood, his eyes glowing intensely, a chilling testament to his own brutal brand of justice. With blood splattered across his face and sword, the protagonist stood, his eyes glowing intensely, a chilling testament to his own brutal brand of justice. A tense silence fell as Johann stood, his clothes stained with blood from a recent execution. Khan, the seasoned mercenary leader, explained that he had taken the life of Gamson, a member of their own group, for attempting to steal from a noble. He asserted that Gamson's actions had trampled on their mercenary honor and rules, and his execution was necessary to protect the group's integrity. Johann, who had previously stated he wished to avoid bloodshed, listened with a complex expression. Initially, the young noble seemed taken aback by Khan's decisive action. He had not anticipated such a drastic measure, but Khan stood firm, offering himself for any punishment Johann deemed fit if he felt his authority had been defied. This unwavering resolve, born from a deep sense of duty and honor, gave Johann pause. After a moment of contemplation, Johann did something unexpected. He apologized to Khan. He admitted that he had failed to consider the unique position and honor of the mercenaries. This apology from a noble deeply shocked Khan and his companions, who had never witnessed such humility. Khan, now filled with profound respect, vowed to endure any future recklessness for Johann. As their journey continued, Khan reflected on Johann's extraordinary character. He saw a noble who was upright, brave, and yet devoid of authoritarian arrogance. Such a person was rare, and Khan, a shrewd merchant, immediately recognized the potential for a powerful alliance. He resolved to introduce Johann to the Katana Trading Company, certain that befriending this unique individual would significantly boost his own reputation and influence. Their travels soon brought them to a village, where the grateful residents offered gifts to Johann and his group. Among these tokens of appreciation was a young slave named Godin, presented as someone skilled in geography who could prove useful. Johann accepted Godin, noticing the slave's neglected state, and instructed his companions to ensure the boy was cleaned and fed. Later, Johann conversed with Godin, encouraging him to drop the formalities and call him by his name. Godin, initially shy, slowly revealed his tragic past. He had once been a peddler, smuggling gold for a noble to provide for his sick and starving younger siblings. However, the very noble he served eventually reported him, leading to his enslavement and the loss of all the money meant for his family. Due to the emperor's edict, he had been denied even the right to speak in his own defense. Johann listened, his expression darkening with each word. He felt a profound anger at the world's cruelty, where the powerless were exploited without recourse. He recalled the house Brit soldiers, the desperate people of Rootsbeck, and the countless others who suffered under the weight of noble atrocities. Godin, observing Johann's intense empathy, hesitantly asked if he could remain by his side. Johann, seeing a kindred spirit in the boy, readily agreed. Just as a fragile sense of peace settled, a sudden commotion erupted. A monster had appeared nearby, and the mercenaries instantly drew their weapons, ready for battle. But Johann, with a calm yet commanding voice, ordered them to put their weapons away. Johann, a knight burdened by an unseen past, offered calm reassurance to his worried companions. He intended to investigate a nearby disturbance, despite their deep concern for his safety. Fighting monsters, they stressed, demanded specialized skills, and even well-laid traps couldn't guarantee safety. Their primary mission was to protect the Eldons, and they couldn't afford to take any more risks. As Johann ventured into the dark, a familiar, chilling pressure settled over him. Before long, he spotted the black wolf of ill omen, its red eyes glowing menacingly in the shadows. He remembered their last encounter. The wolf had attacked other predators, leaving him unharmed. This time, he believed, would be no different. He called out to the creature, thanking it for its unspoken aid in the past. Back with the Eldons, fear began to creep in. They whispered, wondering if Johann truly knew how to handle such a beast. They had never witnessed anything like this, a knight calmly addressing a fearsome monster. One of them, particularly terrified, almost moved to intervene. Johann, unfazed, simply referred to the wolf as this big guy. His companions, however, were quick to correct him, identifying it as the infamous Black Wolf of Ill Omen. Johann then clarified, revealing its true name, the Guide of Dawn. One of the Eldons, recalling ancient lore, began to recount the legend from the Eastern Empire. During a great war, a warrior had given a wolf a name, the Guide of Dawn. The wolf, with blue eyes shining in the darkness, had bowed its head to the warrior and led the charge on countless battlefields. When the war finally ended and the warrior, now a hero, met his end, the Black Wolf mourned for 3 days and nights by his side. Afterward, it embarked on an eternal journey, seeking out places where order was needed and heroes were scarce. As the tale traveled south, some details had become distorted, but the core remained. The Guide of Dawn punishes evil and submits to a brave hero. A flicker of hope ignited in the Eldons' eyes. They wondered if Johann was that legendary hero. One of them, emboldened by the thought, hesitantly asked if he could pet the magnificent creature. Johann allowed it, but the wolf, with a snarl, snapped at the Eldon, making it clear its gentleness was reserved only for him. The Eldons then recalled another fragment of the legend. If you give a name to the divine beast that follows you, it becomes your vassal. They urged Johann to name the wolf, convinced he was the hero destined to command it. Johann considered their words, searching for a suitable name. He remembered the last time he had encountered the wolf, when he had buried the vile Karamov. A thought struck him. He declared, "I'll name you Karamov." The wolf, surprised, let out a soft "Nia." As the name resonated, an incredible transformation began. The menacing red aura surrounding the wolf shifted, swirling into a brilliant, ethereal blue. The creature itself changed, becoming a majestic, glowing blue wolf, the Guide of Dawn Karamov. The Eldons were utterly astonished, their awe palpable. They now firmly believed Johann was the hero of troubled times, chosen by the Eastern divine beast. They showered him with fervent respect, recounting his actions, how he had protected them from bandits, shown mercy to his enemies, and even forgiven them with honor. Johann, however, remained grounded. He humbly tried to temper their expectations, explaining he was merely a wanderer from an insignificant house, struggling to make a living. He confessed he was even being hunted for having killed the original Karamov, apologizing if he had disappointed them. But the Eldons were not disappointed. Instead, one of them, eager to repay his kindness, offered to introduce Johann to the Marcel Trading Company. Johann recalled the name, a place mentioned when they first met. The Eldon explained that Marcel was a renowned free trade city, a vital hub in the region. Most importantly, it was one of the few cities beyond the Emperor's reach. Johann's eyes lit up. He realized that this was an opportunity. He was still a wanderer, still struggling to survive, but this time he would move forward, step by his own will. With a new companion at his side, the knight set off towards Marcel, the city of wealthy merchants. A new chapter about to unfold for the hero of troubled times. The journey had finally brought our boy, Johann, to Marcel, a bustling merchant city. He never imagined he would return to such a place, a stark contrast to the desolate lands he once knew. His companion, Godin, in an unexpected display of his divine beast abilities, transformed into a small, adorable dog. This sudden change, while charming to others, only amplified Johan's anxieties about his true nature being exposed to the unsuspecting public. With their arrival in a merchant city, the practical matter of supplies arose. Goaden, a former equipment merchant, confidently offered to handle all their needs with a single silver coin. He proved true to his word, displaying an incredible gift for Gab. He successfully sold their completely shattered helm for a surprisingly high price, even securing a mace for free. With the funds, he acquired a tactical bag for Johan, a large supply backpack for himself, and essential items like vinegar and oil for equipment preservation. Astonishingly, they even received change, leaving them with an impressive 12 silver and 10 copper coins, far more than they started with. The newfound comfort of Marcel was a revelation for Johan. He reflected on his past as a wanderer, where jerky tasted like leather shoes, baths were a luxury, and damp cold stones were his only bed. Here, the meat melted in his mouth, warm water was readily available, and soft blankets offered luxurious sleep. This sudden abundance of simple pleasures was overwhelming. He felt a deep sense of happiness he hadn't known before, leading him to dream of settling down in this peaceful city. However, fate had a different plan. The very next day, the idyllic peace of Marcel began to crack. Johan noticed a pervasive unease in the city, fueled by the rising threat of bandits. He soon encountered a desperate mercenary, a straggler from the Wolves of Aquitaine group, trying to steal food, claiming starvation. The mercenary, recognizing him, immediately turned hostile, revealing the mercenary group had tracked him all the way to Marcel. This confrontation was a grave danger, threatening to expose his identity to the entire city. He quickly subdued the man, eliminating the immediate threat. Just as this tension mounted, the city square was suddenly filled with the thunderous arrival of the Oak Tree mercenaries. Their captain, Bradil, a man of imposing presence, announced their mission to wipe out the bandits and restore safety to Marcel with his 500-strong force. Godin, thrilled, explained that the Oak Tree mercenaries were among the most renowned groups in the entire empire. Yet, Johan's mind remained fixed on his precarious situation. He was still a fugitive, and his survival hinged on building a strong relationship with the Katana Trading Company. He knew that even the Emperor wouldn't recklessly challenge such a powerful entity. Eldans had already spoken highly of him, offering an opportunity to connect with the Marcel branch of the company. But if his true identity were revealed before he secured their trust, before he established that crucial bond, they would never offer him protection. He would, without a doubt, die. His goal was crystal clear: reach the Katana Trading Company, gain their protection, and keep his identity absolutely secret until then. As he grappled with these weighty thoughts, a refined voice interrupted his contemplation. A maid, identifying herself as Ibelka from the Katana Trading Company, approached him directly. She stated that she had heard of his exploits from Eldans and was greatly impressed. To Johan's astonishment, she then extended a formal invitation, expressing their desire to form a close bond with him and his house, and asked him to accompany her to the Katana Trading Company. The wandering knight, Sir Johan, had finally arrived at the Marcel branch of the Katana Trading Company, a grand establishment that promised the chance to change his life. As he entered, his small companion, Karamov, playfully bit his arm, reminding him of their shared journey. Johan hoped his upcoming talks would go well. He was desperate for an opportunity. Soon, he found himself in a luxurious room, introduced to Ione, the branch manager. She was a woman with striking cat-like features, and she formally introduced herself as the manager of the Katana Trading Company's Marcel branch. Johan, identifying himself as being from House Yates, exchanged pleasantries before Ione suggested they discuss matters over a cup of tea. The tea, a special trade good from the Mediterranean region, was delightful. Johan, perceptive, recognized its unique aroma as coffee, brewed from roasted fruit seeds, a detail that pleased Ione. With the pleasantries concluded, Ione brought up the real business. She claimed to know his true intent. He harbored a great ambition to save Marcel from the rampant bandits, a reputation for protecting the innocent and showing mercy to enemies having preceded him. Johan, surprised but quick-witted, played along, affirming her astute observation. Ione explained that Katana loved to sponsor ambitious and worthy individuals. Their sponsorship meant he could enjoy all of the company's services, restaurants, inns, and entertainment, at no cost. This was an incredible offer, and Johan's mind raced with possibilities. With the company's backing and potentially even the governor's support, he could become untouchable, even by the emperor who hunted him. He knew he had to accept this deal. However, Ione then presented the condition: he must fight under the company's banner whenever his aid was required. She clarified that this wasn't about the bandits, as the oak tree mercenaries were already handling them. Instead, she wanted him to remove members of disgruntled shop districts, those complaining about Katana's market monopoly, and preferably their children as well. Johan was horrified. He refused outright, stating he could not kill innocent people, especially children, for such a reason. He declared the deal off. Young then revealed the truth. It had all been a test. The monopoly and complaints were fabricated. Katana was actually well liked for its fair practices. She commended his righteousness and reiterated the original sponsorship terms. For now, he was free to rest and enjoy Katana's benefits. Overjoyed and relieved, Johan accepted, shaking hands on the agreement. His companion Godin celebrated with him, and Johan felt a surge of hope for a peaceful life in Marseille. His newfound optimism, however, was short-lived. Stepping outside, he was confronted by a horrifying sight: dead bodies strewn across the open. A local, Goran, explained that bandits were murdering merchant families and displaying their bodies as a threat to the city. Johan was enraged, realizing that nothing was resolved. Some locals blamed the city, while others, more daring, whispered that the emperor himself was inciting the bandits. Johan dismissed this, finding it hard to believe His Majesty would stoop so low. Back at the Katana Trading Company, Yaon was already aware of the gruesome discovery. She inquired about the oak tree mercenaries, but her subordinate, Ibelka, reported that they couldn't be reached. Their liaison had been found dead near the forest, in a truly horrific state. Yaon was stunned. The oak tree mercenaries were one of the Empire's top groups, comparable in strength to a city's military. She couldn't fathom them losing to mere bandits. Desperate for answers, she ordered Ibelka to bring Swetelga, the mage of the Ifael River, hoping his prophecies could reveal what had truly happened. Swetelga, a mysterious figure, arrived at the river. After a moment of contemplation, he declared that Katana was mistaken. Searching for the mercenaries would change nothing. He then revealed a far more unsettling truth. The man who killed the Emperor's hunting dog and fled was now hiding within Marcel's money pouch, referring to Johan's new sponsorship. Swetelga's eyes gleamed with an ominous light as he concluded that things would not go the way that bastard thought they would. Lord Swetelga, a venerable old man with a flowing white beard, arrived at the Katana Trading Company's Marseille branch. His journey, however, had been far from pleasant. He grumbled about the carriage driver's reckless speed, lamenting the bumpy ride that had strained his back. The Katana representative, eager to please, offered to fetch Lord Ion, but Swetelga dismissed the idea, stating that if the matter were truly urgent, Ion would have come himself. At the same time, Sir Johan, our determined protagonist, also arrived at the branch. He harbored high hopes for this meeting, believing it was his chance to impress Marseille's governor and finally settle down, leaving behind his life on the run from the emperor. He saw this as a pivotal moment, akin to passing a crucial interview for a major corporation. As he pondered what gifts the governor might appreciate, he noticed Lord Swetluk engaged in a peculiar interaction. The old man was playfully teasing a small, cat-like creature, addressing it by the name Karamav. Johan was struck by the realization that Swetluk not only knew the divine beast's name, but also seemed to possess an unusual familiarity. Intrigued, Johan asked for the old man's identity. Swetluk introduced himself as the sage of the Ifael River, a mage. The revelation ignited a spark of excitement in Johan. He had stumbled upon a mage in a big city, a rare opportunity. He eagerly expressed his desire to learn magic, envisioning himself as a powerful magic swordsman, a transformation he believed would significantly boost his chances of survival. Swetelga, seemingly amused by his earnestness, agreed to teach him. The sage explained his philosophy, emphasizing that he was a seeker of nature's mysteries, not a participant in petty political squabbles. He assured Johan that his intentions were benign, as he would have acted discreetly if he meant harm. Reassured, Johan reiterated his plea to learn about magic, and Swetelga began his lesson. He revealed that true magic wasn't about flashy spells, but about understanding the world's natural laws, a concept he termed the game of gods. To illustrate, he presented a Go-like board game, explaining it as a practical way to grasp the intricate structure of existence. Johan, despite the game's apparent complexity, felt a surge of confidence. He had, after all, once achieved a 4th Dan ranking in a Go tournament. He was certain he could outwit the old man and absorb his magical knowledge. Swetelga, with a knowing smile, offered to go easy on him. However, Johan's confidence quickly evaporated. 50 minutes later, he sat utterly defeated and exhausted, having suffered a crushing loss. He pleaded for more time, but Swetelga gently refused, explaining that the game of gods transcended mere gore rules. It was about the profound understanding of the world itself. The sage even demonstrated his mastery by predicting the exact number of moves required for victory, leaving Johann stunned by his immense skill. Johann, still reeling from the defeat, considered the possibility of magic items. He then explained his need for more tools to survive, given the Emperor's relentless pursuit. Swetelga, however, delivered a sobering truth. The magic he taught was not for combat. He clarified that mages primarily discovered mysteries in nature, which manifested as spirits, residing in elements like wind, fire, or even the smoke of burning sulfur. Mages borrowed power from these spirits, but while they often lent their abilities freely, their whims could sometimes demand a fatal price if their will was defied. Johann quickly concluded that this world's magic was far too risky for his purposes. Just then, the Katana branch manager burst in, agitated. He chastised his subordinate for not informing him of Lord Swetelga's presence, expressing his frustration with mages and their troublesome ways. He then spotted Swetelga, engaged in what he perceived as another one of his teasing games, only to realize, to his astonishment, that Swetelga was actually losing to our boy. The manager, intrigued and flustered, questioned Johann's identity and expressed his dismay at not being called earlier. Swetelga, unfazed, simply stated he had been enjoying a few games with the knight. With the manager's unexpected arrival, the game had to end. As they concluded, Swetelga presented Johann with 2 flasks, one red and one green. He explained they contained the water of wrath and the water of blessing, respectively, holding the final secrets of the Ifel River. High above Jeju Island, the formidable hunter Jinwoo soared through the skies, mounted on his loyal wyvern, Kaisel. Below him stretched a desolate landscape scarred by a colossal ant nest, a sight that filled him with a strange, unsettling familiarity. His mission was clear: investigate this massive dungeon, prevent a potential dungeon break that threatened the island, and locate a particular type of ant. Descending into the cavernous depths, Jinwoo left Kaisel guarding the entrance, a silent sentinel against any unexpected threats. The air grew heavy with the stench of the nest, and the tunnel stretched endlessly, teeming with countless ants. He felt an immense, oppressive aura emanating from deep within, unmistakably the presence of an ant king. This was the target he sought for his growing army of shadows. Then, a colossal figure emerged from the depths, radiating an overwhelming power unlike anything he had encountered from lesser ants. This was the Ant King, Beru, a creature of immense strength and terrifying speed. The monstrous ant wasted no time, launching itself forward in a blur, its powerful limbs smashing through the rock walls of the tunnel with ease. Jinwoo skillfully dodged the onslaught, a flicker of admiration for his opponent's raw power crossing his face. Our hero decided to face this formidable foe alone. He wished to push his own limits, to truly test the extent of his abilities against such a powerful beast, and to ensure the Ant King's full strength remained intact for eventual reanimation. Beru let out a deafening roar, a sonic wave that tore through the very structure of the tunnel, causing sections to collapse around them. Jinwoo countered, moving with blinding speed, his daggers a silver blur as they struck the Ant King repeatedly. He unleashed a flurry of attacks, each blow aimed with precision. Yet, despite the damage inflicted, Beru quickly recovered, its impressive regeneration capabilities evident as it continued its relentless, furious assault. This was truly a battle of titans. Realizing the need to conclude the fight swiftly and decisively, Jinwoo unleashed his full power. He moved faster than the eye could track, appearing almost instantaneously behind the monstrous ant. With a singular, devastating strike, he pinned Beru to the cavern wall, its immense form struggling in vain against the overwhelming force. The Ant King was defeated, utterly outmatched. Without hesitation, Jinwoo issued the command for shadow extraction. A dark energy enveloped the fallen Ant King, and moments later, the system confirmed the successful reanimation of a new shadow soldier, Beru, the Ant King. The newly formed shadow immediately knelt before its master, pledging absolute loyalty and offering its immense power. Jinwoo, pleased with his new addition, gave Beru his first command: find the Queen Ant. Beru, utilizing its heightened senses, wasted no time, leading Jinwoo through the winding tunnels to a vast, central chamber. Inside, a truly grotesque sight awaited them. The Queen Ant lay there, an enormous, bloated creature surrounded by countless eggs, her size dwarfing everything else in the chamber. Sensing the intrusion, the Queen retaliated, spitting a potent stream of corrosive acid. Jinwoo deftly dodged the attack, recognizing the immense danger she posed. But just as he prepared for another arduous battle, a new, deeply unsettling aura filled the chamber. It was distinct, powerful, and undeniably alien to the ants. It wasn't another monstrous insect, it was human. From the deep shadows emerged a figure, badly injured and clearly terrified, but undeniably alive. This wasn't a dungeon break, it was something far more shocking. A human hunter, trapped deep within the heart of the ant nest. Branch manager Vilaco confronted Johann Eitzes, cutting through any pleasantries to reveal his knowledge of the young knight's true identity and past. Vilaco explained his complex strategy for Marcel, aiming to balance the pro-emperor and anti-emperor factions to ensure the city's survival. He then tasked Johann with a crucial mission: lead a force to wipe out a notorious bandit gang. This, Vilaco explained, was Johann's chance to earn merit and prove his indispensable value to the city. Failure, however, would result in him being handed over to the emperor. This unexpected turn of events weighed heavily on Johann. He had finally found a semblance of peace and stability in Marcel, believing his days of hardship were behind him. Yet, this new life, though a luxury, felt like another shackle around his neck. He briefly considered abandoning everything and running away, but quickly dismissed the thought. Nothing in this world came free, he knew, and a roof over his head was already a privilege he wouldn't easily forsake. He resolved to face the challenge, determined to gain Vilaco's favor and solidify his place in Marcel. The next day, Johann witnessed the impressive gathering of the second bandit subjugation force. It was a formidable assembly, featuring the Red Iron Mercenaries, renowned for their loyalty and open-mindedness in siege battles. Also present were the St. Iena Monastery, an order of female holy knights said to be powerful enough to hunt trolls, and the St. Galantil Monastery, an order of male holy knights famous for their alchemy. To his surprise, Count Bartok's knights, elves from Orangs known for their bravery and skill, also arrived, though they carried a reputation for being notoriously rude. Johann met Captain Kumal of the Red Iron Mercenaries, a dwarf who, despite his formal position, appreciated Johann's respectful demeanor. The Holy Knight Vanguard commanders, Balien and Agante, also agreed to coordinate their movements with Kumal's men, signaling a united front. However, the atmosphere quickly soured when Gustav, a knight from Count Bartok's contingent, along with Laurent and Leon, approached. Gustav arrogantly dismissed Johann's Hausyates as insignificant, warning him harshly not to impede their progress on the battlefield. He declared that Bartok's knights would take no orders from the dwarf captain, showcasing the very rudeness Johann had heard about. Observing the elves' obnoxious behavior, Johann realized why Vilaco had inquired about command authority. He felt a pang of sympathy for Captain Kumal, the old man dwarf, who had to contend with such allies. Yet, despite the internal friction, the sheer strength of the assembled force gave Johann hope. He believed that with such a powerful lineup, wiping out the bandits was entirely achievable, even with the elves' difficult presence. That night, as the subjugation force enjoyed a grand feast before their departure, Johann was summoned. He anticipated another meeting with Vilaco. But instead, he found himself facing Baron Einbeck, a man who immediately introduced himself as a loyal subject of the emperor. Einbeck probed Johann's motives, subtly implying that his participation was driven solely by financial gain. He then revealed that Marcel's proclaimed neutrality was, in fact, a carefully constructed facade, masking its true inclination towards the anti-emperor faction. Einbeck then presented Johann with an enticing offer: abandon the bandit subjugation and instead dedicate his strength to the emperor. He promised rewards far exceeding anything a trading company could offer, a chance to join the empire's core, formal knighthood, and a vast fertile domain. To underscore his leverage, Einbeck revealed he had investigated Johann and found no record of House Yates. He knew only of House Eitz, which had been wiped out for treason against his majesty, strongly implying that Johann was a survivor of that disgraced lineage. Our protagonist listened intently, then calmly refused Einbeck's proposition. He declared he would fight the bandits for his own reasons, not for the emperor or Marcel. He then delivered a chilling counter-revelation. A few months prior, a man claiming to carry the emperor's command had slaughtered his innocent family and people, making a strikingly similar offer to become the emperor's sword. Johann had refused that offer too, and in a display of terrifying resolve, he revealed that he had personally crushed the head of that emperor's direct knight, Karamov, for treating his serfs like mere worms. As if to punctuate his warning, Johann crushed a pewter cup and the table with his bare hands, advising Einbeck to keep silent about what he had seen and heard, lest he suffer a similar fate. Einbeck was left speechless, utterly shattered by the revelation of Karamov's death. He clutched his chest, his breath catching in his throat. A sudden, agonizing pain seized him, and he realized with dawning horror that he had been poisoned. In an open space near the Marcel gathering point, Johann Eitz found himself in a precarious situation. A group of mercenaries, seemingly amused by his appearance, tried to entice him with promises of fun, suggesting he abandon his sweaty male companions for their company. Disgusted and unsettled by their overtures, he quickly fled, muttering that the place was simply too scary. Soon after, a terrible sight unfolded as he collapsed, bleeding profusely. His companion, Svetla, was overcome with panic, desperately crying out for help as she realized the severity of his injuries. The memory shifted, revealing the full extent of his wounds as he coughed weakly. This panel is Johann, a cry for help. It emphasizes the previous narration of desperately crying out for help, but has no new distinct narration of its own, serving as a visual punctuation. This panel of vertical gray lines serves as a visual transition, reinforcing the memory shifted from the previous beat. Fortunately, a young girl named Godin was there, offering him a crucial potion she had received from Swetoga. He drank it, his life hanging by a thread. Later, recovering, he expressed his profound gratitude to Godin for finding him and saving his life. He also thanked Svetlaga for the water of blessing, acknowledging that without it, he surely would have died. Svetlaga, however, didn't mince words, scolding him for his recklessness. She reminded him that he knew Baron Einbeck was part of the pro-emperor faction, making his pursuit incredibly dangerous. She even sarcastically suggested that if he were to be reckless again, he should at least die quickly to conserve their remaining potion. He conceded, confirming that only half the potion was left and promising to use it wisely. When asked if he had managed to catch Baron Einbeck, he reported that the Baron had already fled by the time he arrived. Yet, despite the Baron's escape, our protagonist revealed he had found something far more significant. He had discovered documents Einbeck couldn't take with him, papers detailing the entire incident. These weren't merely proof that the Emperor had hired bandits, but something far more serious was written within them. This panel shows the old man looking at the document, reinforcing something far more serious. As night fell, a chilling voice echoed, suggesting that by now, Johann was likely dead. The voice continued, proclaiming that everything was proceeding exactly as the Emperor had intended. Soon, Baron Einbeck arrived at a mercenary camp, receiving a warm welcome. The Baron then addressed the assembled forces, proudly declaring that they were not common bandits, but elite mercenaries of the strongest empire, bound by gold and unwavering loyalty to the Holy Emperor. He spoke of the dazzling glory that awaited them, boasting of how he had long undermined Marcel from within, holding their plans and strategies firmly in the palm of his hand. To further ensure their victory, His Majesty had personally sent an imperial court mage. The Baron excitedly identified her as Kaigel of the Crimson Flames. However, a mysterious mage appeared, correcting the Baron. She scoffed at the idea of being an ordinary mage, introducing herself as Imperial Court Mage Janina, a favored agent of the Emperor. Einbeck was visibly shocked, realizing she was a snake beastman, and admitted he had never heard of a mage by that name. Janina clarified that she didn't merely wield trivial elements, she handled living weapons. With a chilling display of power, she conjured a formidable troll, declaring it would stand shoulder to shoulder with them in battle. Baron Einbeck, filled with zealous fervor, declared that tomorrow would be the day they crushed Marcel's second subjugation force, offering Marcel as a tribute to the Emperor. His shouts of "Long live the Holy Empire" resonated through the night. Back with his companions, Johann entrusted Godin with the critical documents, instructing her to deliver them to Vilaco Tranieni and to tell no one else. He believed Vilaco absolutely had to verify the contents. He then called Goran and Khan over, preparing for their next move. Meanwhile, a new figure, Ephile River, appeared, asking a profound question: why was someone trying to save that knight? He wondered what ulterior motive lay behind such an intervention, and what they ultimately wished to achieve through Johann. These panels are visual continuations or reactions to Ephile River's thoughts questions, without new explicit narration. The second subjugation force, led by Captain Kumal, prepared for deployment, their mission to quell a bandit threat. Among the ranks was Johann, who shared a quiet farewell with Sweroga, wishing her good fortune before he set off. He assured her this was not his first time on such an operation, but she urged him to worry about himself. With the final orders given, Captain Kumal rallied the troops, and they began their march. Back in Marcel City, the city magistrate, Bilaco, received news that the subjugation force had departed. He had already reviewed a letter sent by Sir Johann, a document he found quite intriguing. The letter mentioned a suspicious item discovered in Baron Einbeck's room just the day before deployment, a timing Vilako found highly amusing. He understood that such a discovery implicated Einbeck as a traitor, and he suspected a deeper plot. Vilako worried that a knight's misguided actions, or perhaps a frame-up, could shatter the city's delicate balance, potentially bringing the Ketana Trading Company under scrutiny. He mused that the man behind this elaborate scheme might belong to the pro-emperor faction. Indeed, at the pro-emperor faction's camp, Baron Einbeck confirmed the second subjugation force had set out. He was confident they would fall into their trap, effectively bringing Marcel under the emperor's control. Duke Mayhem, head of the Special Operations Unit, expressed his crude excitement about taking over Marcel, eager to visit its brothels. Einbeck, however, appeared unusually pale. Imperial court mage Janina noticed his distress and asked why. Einbeck hesitantly inquired if she had heard anything about Sir Karamov, specifically if he had been seriously injured on his expedition. Janina scoffed, dismissing the idea as a ridiculous joke. She reminded him that Karamov was the Empire's strongest swordsman. Meanwhile, Johann's unit arrived at a desolate battlefield, observing that Sir Gustav's unit had swept through cleanly. The air was thick with tension as an elf and a dwarf in his unit began to bicker. The dwarf, asserting his pride, reminded the elf to show proper respect to Sir Johann, a noble. Captain Kumal intervened, calming the brewing conflict. He questioned if there had been fighting and where the victorious forces had gone. The dwarf explained that Sir Gustav and the elven knights had indeed wiped the place clean. Kumal, satisfied, was eager to press on, wanting to avoid further nitpicking from the elven knights. Johann, however, saw something amiss. The bandit stronghold had been too easily dismantled, the victory too one-sided, with the elves seemingly suffering no casualties. He noted a dense forest to their right, a perfect terrain for an ambush. He suspected the bandits had retreated intentionally, luring them deeper into a trap. He immediately stopped Captain Kumal, ordering a defensive formation and instructing all shooters to concentrate fire into the forest. Kumal and his dwarf subordinate were bewildered, questioning the logic of attacking an empty forest when they could simply crush the bandits. Johann firmly explained that if an enemy was indeed lying in ambush, their current position would put them in grave danger. He insisted they verify the forest safety before proceeding. Kumal, with the order given, Johann directed the shooters to target both flanks of the forested area. The troops unleashed a volley of arrows and bolts. Suddenly, figures emerged from the tree line, confirming the ambush. Captain Kumal watched in stunned disbelief. These were no ordinary bandits. From the depths of the forest emerged monstrous, horned figures with glowing red eyes, an enemy far more terrifying than they had anticipated. Sir Johann, a seasoned knight, inquired about the formidable bullhead mercenaries. His companion, Goran, confirmed their notorious reputation, describing them as an elite group, even more expensive and well-known than the celebrated wolves of Akaten. He pressed for details, learning that despite their fame, they were shrouded in secrecy, demanding exorbitant fees and only accepting specific jobs. Their combat style is distinctive, resembling a herd of enraged bulls, charging directly into enemy formations to shatter defensive lines from within. Our knight likened their tactics to Germany's blitzkrieg. Goran grimly confirmed that they would likely face these emperor's elite mercenaries the very next day. He strongly advised Johann to retreat at all costs and avoid a direct confrontation, emphasizing that a head-on clash would be suicidal. Then, Goran revealed a chilling rumor. The bullheads were said to command a hero-slayer minotaur. He described the beast as having a colossal body, overwhelming strength, and intelligence rivaling a human's, a creature that had slaughtered countless warriors and knights who dared to challenge it. Our knight, however, simply laughed off the warning, assuring Goran not to worry. The conversation continued with Goran and Khan, his loyal mercenaries, pledging to risk their lives to cover Johann's retreat, asking only for payment if they survived the ordeal. Our knight admitted he had already intended to seek their help. His companions even expressed a desire to witness the legendary, bull-headed bastard for themselves, even if it meant a swift retreat. The next day, battle erupted. The opposing forces, identified as the Marcel Bastards, seemed indecisive, shifting their formation as if they had noticed something amiss. Arrows rained down, and chaos engulfed the battlefield as the bullhead mercenaries launched their attack. Our knight immediately recognized the onslaught, confirming it was indeed the dreaded bullheads, a force he had only heard about until now. Despite their advanced preparations, the engagement had turned into a full-blown frontal collision. Feeling the weight of the situation, he knew he had to act. He urgently instructed Captain Kamal to brace for impact, realizing the enemy intended to charge straight at them. He declared his intention to disrupt their charging formation. As he prepared to move, someone tried to restrain him, warning that going alone was too dangerous. Ignoring the pleas, he rallied his Red Iron mercenaries, proclaiming that the Bullhead mercenaries were testing their might and they would soon learn the futility of their weapons and armor. He then charged headlong into the enemy lines alone. The approaching cavalry saw him, a lone knight, and scoffed at his apparent madness, vowing to grant his death wish. But our knight was a whirlwind of motion, cutting through the enemy with blinding speed and power. The mercenaries were stunned, shouting in disbelief and scrambling to stop him. His objective was clear: to smash their formation. The Bullhead commander, realizing his intent, quickly barked orders to maintain their breakthrough formation, cursing Johann for understanding his strategy. He urged his men to focus on the front and prepare to breach the enemy lines. The two forces slammed into each other with devastating impact. The Bullhead mercenaries, true to their name, cracked skulls open, their formation piercing through the enemy lines. They pushed forward relentlessly, urging their foes to die with honor in the brutal close-quarters combat. From a distance, our knight observed the fierce fighting, noting that his allies seemed to be holding their own on that side. He then turned his gaze back to the heart of the conflict, wondering what remained for him to do amidst this head-on clash. A lone knight, riding with fierce determination, charged headfirst into the formidable formation of the Bullhead mercenaries. His sudden, audacious attack sent shockwaves through their ranks, drawing the ire of their fearsome captain, Numeros. The mercenaries, a brutal force renowned for their minotaur-like features, clamored in disbelief and rage, questioning the identity of this audacious assailant. Numeros, the imposing captain, bristled at the challenge. He scoffed, dismissing the knight as a mere fool steeped in heroic fantasies, then granted permission for one of his squad leaders to face the intruder. The squad leader, eager to prove himself, confidently rode forward, promising to tear the knight to pieces. Yet, in a blink, the squad leader was dispatched, leaving the mercenaries stunned. Numeros, now directly confronting the knight, demanded his identity, but the knight merely told him to dismount his horse. He expressed admiration for the steed, revealing it was named after his own brother. In a chilling taunt, the knight then threatened to make stew out of Numeros's tail, sparking the Minotaur captain's fury. The battle began with a furious clash. Numeros, wielding a massive axe, used his superior reach to keep the knight at bay. The knight struggled, constantly evading the crushing blows, realizing that a single graze would mean being cut in half. He acknowledged the insane difference in reach, momentarily regretting not bringing a crest recoverer. The mercenaries jeered from the sidelines, urging their captain to fight back, not just dodge. Numeros, regaining his composure, declared he would grant the knight a death befitting his status. As the fight intensified, the knight, through careful observation, spotted a crucial opening. With a swift, decisive move, he capitalized on the momentary vulnerability, striking a critical blow that brought the formidable Minotaur captain to his knees. Just as the knight achieved this pivotal victory, a new, more terrifying force descended upon the battlefield. Holy knights from the St. Galanto monastery, their eyes glowing with an eerie light, charged into the fray, chanting hymns and declaring fresh blood as holy water. They moved with a berserker fury, tearing through the mercenary ranks. The mercenaries, already demoralized by their captain's defeat, watched in horror as these new fanatical enemies overwhelmed them. Numeros, defeated and vulnerable, pleaded for his life, revealing he was only a half-minotaur and not as strong or smart as a pureblood. He argued that his death would not count as a true achievement for the knight. Our hero, however, dismissed these concerns, stating he cared nothing for achievements. Instead, he ordered a nearby bugler to sound the call of defeat for the mercenaries and commanded Numeros to become a witness, to tell the truth about what he had seen. As the Holy Knights continued their brutal assault, the knight ordered the victory call sounded, declaring it the first triumph of the battle. Meanwhile, back in the city, the magistrate of the Marseille branch received news of the suppression force's success. He and his elven aide initially attributed the victory to the renowned elf knights of Bartok, praising their great work. However, the celebration was short-lived. A grim report arrived, stating that contact with the elf knights had been lost. Soon after, another document was delivered. It revealed the Bullhead mercenaries had confessed everything, admitting they were instigated by the Baron of Einbeck. The magistrate was utterly astonished, unable to fathom who could have captured the formidable Minotaur captain alive and orchestrated such a complex, absurd turn of events. The identity of this mysterious figure remained a profound and unsettling question. Li Giholk was a hunter, but not one of the celebrated heroes. He was an E-rank, the lowest of the low, barely scraping by. Every day was a struggle, a constant battle against the crushing weight of reality. His mother suffered from mana poisoning, a debilitating illness that demanded expensive specialized medicine. The cost was astronomical, a sum far beyond what his meager earnings could ever hope to cover. He felt the desperation gnawing at him, considering increasingly dangerous jobs just to keep hope alive. His younger sister, Gi-heon, was the family's shining star, attending a prestigious university, a beacon of promise. He carried the burden of his failure, feeling like nothing more than a hindrance to their future. As he scrolled through his phone, news of a new dungeon appearing in Seoul flashed across his screen, a reminder of the perilous world they inhabited. Just then, a message popped up from his friend, Sang Cheol, claiming to have found a hidden dungeon. Lee Gi-hoyok felt a jolt of surprise and skepticism. Hidden dungeons were rare, unpredictable, and notoriously dangerous, usually reserved for higher-ranked hunters. Sang Cheol, however, insisted this one was different, a chance discovery. He swore it was filled with weak F-rank monsters promising an easy fortune. Gi-hoyok's instinct screamed caution, but Sang Cheol-yok's instinct screamed caution, reminding him of his mother's worsening condition and the dire need for money. Cornered by his love for his family and the overwhelming financial strain, our boy reluctantly agreed. They met at the entrance, a desolate, grimy alleyway that reeked of decay. An unsettling aura hung heavy in the air, stirring a deep sense of unease within Gi-hoyok. Suncho brushed off his worries, dismissing them as mere jitters from entering a hidden dungeon for the first time. They stepped through the shimmering portal, finding themselves in a vast, ancient cave system. Gi-hoyok immediately noticed a strange, intricate symbol etched into the wall, emanating a powerful, dark energy that made his skin crawl. Sang Cho, oblivious to the ominous signs, was only focused on finding monsters and getting rich. They soon stumbled upon a chamber dominated by a glowing altar. A primal chill ran down Gi-hoyok's spine. He sensed immense danger. Sang-kyo, however, was consumed by greed, convinced it was a treasure waiting to be plundered. He eagerly approached the altar, ignoring Gi-hoyok's urgent warnings. Before our hero could react, a monstrous, terrifying demon erupted from the altar, its eyes burning with malevolent power. This was no F-rank monster. A wave of pure horror washed over Sang-chul as he realized their grave mistake. The demon lunged, its massive claws tearing into Sang-kyo. Gi-hoyok was frozen, a horrifying realization dawning on him. This was no random encounter. He had been lured here, betrayed by his so-called friend. Sang-kyo screamed, his pleas for help echoing through the cavern, but his cries were abruptly cut short. The demon dispatched him with brutal efficiency, leaving Gi-hoyok paralyzed by shock, guilt, and terror. He was meant to be a sacrifice. The demon's crimson gaze slowly, deliberately, turned towards him. Panic seized Gi-hoyok, and he desperately tried to flee. The demon, however, was impossibly fast. It snatched him, lifting him effortlessly into the air. He struggled, screamed, but its grip was unbreakable. A guttural voice echoed in his mind, praising his delicious and pure mana. He felt his life force being siphoned away, a cold emptiness spreading through his body. As darkness threatened to consume him, images of his mother and sister flashed before his eyes. He couldn't die here. He wouldn't. A searing heat erupted within him, an unknown power surging through his veins. A system message, unseen before, materialized in his vision. Mana absorption rate, 100%. Mana core has been destroyed. New trait, Mana Eater has been created. Pain coursed through him, yet it was intertwined with a strange, burgeoning power. Even the demon seemed surprised, sensing the profound change that had just occurred. Gi-hoyok's body began to glow, his eyes blazing with an ethereal light. He felt a surge of strength, an exhilarating sense of raw power. With a primal roar, he ripped free from the demon's grasp. Rage, pure and unadulterated, fueled him. Gi-hoyok, no longer afraid, confronted the demon. An immense power surged within him, an instinct to devour anything that stood in his way. He attacked, a blur of motion that stunned the ancient creature. The demon tried to retaliate, but Gi-hoyok was too swift, too strong. He felt an insatiable urge to consume the demon's very essence, its power becoming his own. He unleashed a devastating strike, a force born of his new, terrifying ability. The demon crumbled into dust, its monstrous form dissipating into nothingness. Gi-hoyok stood panting, exhausted but alive, feeling the demon's vast power flowing into him, becoming part of his being. He gazed at his hands, marveling at the transformation. Another system message appeared. Mana core has been rebuilt. Mana pool has expanded dramatically. Trait, Mana Eater has leveled up to Leave 2. He had gained unimaginable strength. His thoughts immediately turned to his mother, his sister, and the incredible, horrifying power he now possessed. His life, he knew, would never be the same. Gihyok emerged from the dungeon, stepping back into the familiar alleyway. The world outside seemed unchanged, yet everything felt profoundly different. The weight of his new power, the echoes of his betrayal, and the horrifying events he had just endured settled heavily upon him. He glanced at his phone, the news about the New Soul dungeon still there, but now with a chilling personal significance. A new message, from an unknown sender, flashed across his screen. The game has just begun. Player Lee Gihyok. He looked up, his gaze hardened, his path irrevocably altered. The chapter opened with a dispatch notice confirming the elf knights had fallen into a trap. The hooded figures orchestrating the ambush celebrated, believing this would finally sever the relationship between the city of Marseille and Orangs. However, one of them cautioned against premature celebration. Their main punitive force hadn't been drawn in, and the bullhead mercenaries, despite significant gold spent on them, had surrendered. The leader dismissed the mercenaries as disposable, revealing his true plan lay elsewhere. His primary concern was the condition of Janina's troll. When reminded that trolls were vulnerable to fire and the elf knights might exploit this, the leader remained unfazed. He had strategically placed the troll in a swamp, an area so humid that even torches struggled to light. Moreover, he asserted, ordinary fire would impose a threat to a troll anyway. Convinced of the elf knights' impending doom in the dark abyss, he concluded they would meet their fate without even the light of a torch. However, the scene shifted to the elf knights, revealing a different reality. One of them ignited a peculiar green flame, noting its surprising efficacy even in the swamp's damp environment. This was Iena's fire, a sacred magic passed down through their monastery for generations, primarily used for monster extermination. Unlike normal fire, Iena's fire was a flame of purification. Once kindled, it would not extinguish, even in water, burning what it seized to the very end, incinerating the impure according to the caster's will. This holy magic was crucial. It suppressed a troll's rapid healing ability, allowing them to finally defeat such formidable creatures. The knights were impressed by Sir Johan's mastery of holy magic, swordsmanship, and incredible stamina, attributing his prowess to divine grace and relentless training. Sir Johan, the leader of this small elite group, reassured his companions, although he had initially worried about their limited numbers. He explained their objective wasn't to hunt the troll directly, but to draw its attention just enough to rescue the trapped elf knights. He believed the intelligent elf knights wouldn't waste their strength against an endlessly regenerating monster and were likely hiding somewhere. His prediction, however, proved wrong. The elf knights were not hiding. They were engaged in a desperate battle with the monstrous troll, maintaining formation and fighting for honor, despite being clearly outmatched. The creature was overwhelming them, and their dog, Karamov, discovered the gruesome sight of their fallen horses, confirming the dire situation. Sir Johan realized his mistake. The elf knights had been fighting this entire time, yet this also meant they were still alive. Sister Valian, one of his companions, urged him to wait, explaining their current flames were insufficient for a troll and they needed to prepare a stronger Iena's fire. But Sir Johan, driven by urgency, declared he would go first to buy them time. Valian was stunned, realizing he had misinterpreted her words. Ignoring her pleas, Sir Johan commanded Karamov to herd the scattered horses, while he charged headlong into the fray. As Valian and her sisters began their fervent prayers to Saint Iena, invoking the holy flame for salvation, 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 Sir Johan engaged the colossal troll. The elf knights were in dire straits, their morale shattered and their comrades exhausted, 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 and their comrades exhausted. Laurent, one of the knights, succumbed to despair, urging Gustave to leave him behind and save the rest of the men. Gustave vehemently refused, but Laurent, pushing him away, appeared to sacrifice himself to the monstrous beast. But Laurent, pushing him away, appeared to sacrifice himself to the monstrous beast. But Laurent, pushing him away, appeared to sacrifice himself to the monstrous beast. But Laurent, pushing him away, appeared to sacrifice himself to the monstrous beast. Just as the troll lunged, a spear, seemingly out of nowhere, pierced its incredibly tough hide. pierced its incredibly tough hide. The remaining elf knights stared in disbelief, wondering who could possess such power. Then Gustav, recognizing the distinctive weapon, screamed at his men to make haste and run. At the Katana Trading Company's Marcel branch, a mysterious letter arrived, purporting to be from the Oak Tree Mercenaries, a group long thought lost. The letter requested the Marcel Gate be opened at midnight, claiming 500 men were returning. However, the city magistrate, a shrewd woman with pink hair, immediately suspected Baron Einbeck's treachery. She knew the Oak Tree Mercenaries had been annihilated by the Emperor's elite, and that Einbeck had forged the letter using the crest of their fallen leader, Bradil. This was a clear attempt to dismantle Marcel's final line of defense. The magistrate and her trusted advisor agreed, no matter the circumstances, the gate would not open tonight. Strict orders were given to the guard captain. Marcel's walls would remain impenetrable. Meanwhile, a young girl named Swatovga knelt in prayer, her heart heavy with worry for Johann. She knew he was facing a formidable foe, a troll, and feared for his safety. Gustav, an older, wise man, reassured her, explaining that Johann would wield the Water of Wrath with precision. He recounted how Johann's own master had once used its power to overcome an entire legion. Swetlga, still anxious, produced a small, glowing red gem, the very Water of Wrath, and offered a hopeful smile. Out in the treacherous terrain, Johann was locked in a brutal battle with the monstrous troll, utilizing the glowing blue power of the Water of Wrath. He urged Gustav to pull back all the men, intending to face the beast alone, confident he could pierce its thick hide. A memory flashed through his mind, Gustav's earlier command to stay back and protect Leon. Johann realized his mistake. Gustav, too, was now in danger. He desperately shouted for his men to fall back. When Leon, one of his soldiers, was gravely injured, Johann's resolve hardened into a fierce rage. He cursed Leon for forcing his hand, then threw himself back into the fray, determined to draw the troll's attention. His goal was clear: buy enough time for Gustav and the remaining soldiers to escape. With a powerful strike, Johann managed to temporarily cripple the troll, sealing its mobility. He decided to land one final blow to its leg, hoping to incapacitate it further. But in doing so, he got too close, realizing with a grim certainty that his own end was near. Just then, a blinding light erupted in the distance, followed by a projectile hurtling towards him. Back at Marcel's gate, the guards stared in disbelief as the Oak Tree Mercenaries approached, their crest unmistakable. Confusion quickly turned to horror as they remembered the annihilation of the real mercenaries. The magistrate's warning echoed in their minds. This was a ghost army, a deception. An emergency was declared, and all personnel were ordered to assemble at the gate, ready to defend the city. Inside, the magistrate and her advisor heard the commotion, a grim confirmation of their earlier suspicions. Baron Einbeck's forces, led by a man named Vider, had arrived. Vider taunted the magistrate, mocking her survival, while Einbeck himself gloated about the Empire's glory and the gold he would soon claim. With the gate now under attack, the magistrate's carefully laid plans seemed to crumble. Meanwhile, the battle with the troll reached its tragic climax. The mysterious projectile, a weapon of immense power, struck Johann. Gustav cried out in despair as his leader fell, disappearing beneath the churning water. Blood bloomed across the surface, a stark crimson against the dark depths. Sir Johann was dead. The chapter opened with the Marcel mercenaries preparing a fierce assault on the city's main gate, confident in their plan. They ignited a powerful device, believing their entry was inevitable, despite any resistance. Meanwhile, within the city, loyal guards defended the walls. One revealed a secret: even if the main gate held, bribed guards were meant to open an underground water passage. These defenders, unwavering in their loyalty, pledged their lives to the Holy Empire and its emperor. However, their hopes were quickly dashed. Bradil, the cunning leader of the Oak Tree Mercenaries, revealed that the bribed guards had already been taken care of. He declared that traitors had no place in the empire, even as he himself spearheaded an invasion. Bradil then laid out his strategy. While the main force engaged the wall defenders, another unit would capture their commander, and he, personally, would seek out the city magistrate. Bradil found Lady Iaun, the city magistrate, assuring her that her authority would be preserved despite their takeover. Lady Iaun, however, was not easily swayed, questioning how she could trust attackers. Bradil acknowledged her courage but warned her against testing his patience, subtly reminding her that powerful trading companies often align with the winning side. He then informed her that Marcel's guard commander had already been captured, rendering further resistance futile. Bradil demanded she issue an order for her troops to surrender and pledge an oath of loyalty to their new emperor, threatening consequences if she refused. As the political maneuvering unfolded, another battle raged beneath the city. Guards, including Gustave, Leon, and Laurent, fought desperately underwater against a monstrous foe. Gustave, seeing their dire situation, bravely ordered Leon and the other troops to retreat, declaring he would buy them time. Despite their protests, Gustave insisted it was a superior's command, urging them to get Leon to safety. As they pulled back, Gustave faced the monster alone, shouting Laurent's name, a final desperate plea or warning. Gustave, referring to his opponent as a monster, fought valiantly, seeking an honorable death. He was gravely wounded, his body succumbing to the overwhelming assault. In his final moments, a familiar voice echoed in his mind. The teachings of his master Johann. His master had always instructed him, never fight an enemy you cannot defeat. Run if danger comes, but if you must fight, then kill them and never die. Johann, now at his limit, apologized to his master, feeling his body give out, too tired to move, reflecting on a life that had been far too painful. His heart began to slow, welcoming the peaceful embrace of rest. But then, something snapped. Johann's eyes shot open. He refused to accept death. A fierce resolve ignited within him. If he could not escape death, then he would slay death itself. With this new, burning determination, he burst from the depths, a force reborn. The monstrous enemy was taken aback as Johann, now brimming with power, launched a furious assault, declaring that he would make death feel his wrath. He struck the creature with overwhelming force, leaving it reeling and bleeding. Gustave, still alive but barely conscious, witnessed Johann's sudden resurgence. Johann, seeing his comrade, simply commanded him to get out of the way, stating he had no time for meaningless deaths. The triumph over Marseille City brought a wave of exultation to Marquis Einbeck. He reveled in the victory, openly praising his cloaked subordinate for his perceived utility in achieving this crucial objective. Einbeck, brimming with confidence, outlined his next steps: the swift execution of the wealthy merchants, Bilacol and Iaun, followed by a thorough purge of all anti-emperor factions that had taken root in Marseille. He was determined to send a clear message, asserting that no amount of money could ever purchase the inherent nobility of blood and honor. The cloaked man, outwardly compliant, affirmed his intention to deliver this joyous news directly to the emperor, ensuring that all credit for this strategic success would be attributed solely to Einbeck. Yet, beneath his deferential demeanor, the cloaked man harbored a clandestine agenda. He inwardly scoffed at Einbeck's cunning, recognizing the Marquis's transparent attempt to monopolize the glory. Our knight decided then and there to subtly twist his report, sowing seeds of discord and creating future trouble for his superior. As he traveled deeper into a dense forest, his journey was unexpectedly interrupted by the sight of a magnificent horse. It was clearly the mount of a fallen knight, its presence a stark reminder of the dangers of this world, but also a valuable opportunity. He immediately recognized it as a superb steed, perfect for accelerating his journey to the imperial palace. However, his path was abruptly and violently blocked. From the shadows emerged a horrifying monstrous creature, its form a swirling vortex of dark energy, punctuated by malevolent, glowing eyes. The beast lunged, a primal roar tearing through the quiet forest, and our cloaked knight, without hesitation, drew his gleaming spear, preparing for an unavoidable confrontation. Unbeknownst to him, a small contingent of armored knights, led by a seasoned commander named Gustave, had been observing the scene from a discreet distance. They knew this monster intimately, having faced its terrifying power many times before. Dozens of attempts to stop it had ended in utter failure. Their weapons had failed to inflict even a superficial wound, and the creature had never once cried out in pain from their attacks. Yet, as the cloaked human knight's spear found its mark, a guttural shriek of agony tore from the monster's throat. Gustave, a veteran of countless battles, immediately understood the profound difference in their capabilities. He concluded that their intervention would only serve as a hindrance, a distraction that could jeopardize this singular, effective fighter. This was a moment, he declared, to simply bear witness to a truly honorable battle. Pushing past the limits of exhaustion, past the limits of exhaustion, pushing 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 past the cashin, pushing past the limits of exhaustion, pushing past the limits of exhaustion, pushing past the long fusion, pushing past the lumps of exhaustion, pushing past the long fusion, pushing past the limits of exhaustion, pushing past the lumps of fusion, pushing past the fusion. With a final, desperate surge of power, The cloaked knight plunged his spear with devastating force deep into the monster's pulsating core. A deafening shriek of pure agony and ultimate defeat erupted from the creature as its shadowy form began to rapidly unravel and dissipate, dissolving into a shimmering cascade of dark energy. Within moments, nothing remained but a lingering, ethereal mist. Gustav and his knights watched the aftermath in stunned silence, their faces etched with a mixture of profound awe and disbelief. They had never witnessed such raw power, such unparalleled skill in combat. The battle was decisively over, and the mysterious cloaked knight stood victorious, breathing heavily, the remnants of his immense effort visible. His mission to reach the Imperial Palace was now seemingly back on track, but a new, compelling question hung heavy in the air for the observers. Who was this formidable warrior, and what other incredible feats was he capable of? The chapter opened on a grim scene, a group of knights surrounded by monstrous beasts, their forms twisted and menacing. Among them, a knight named Leon lay gravely wounded, his despair palpable as he believed his end was near. He struggled against the encroaching darkness, questioning if this pathetic demise was truly an honorable end for a knight of Erengs. He struggled against the encroaching darkness, questioning if this pathetic demise was truly an honorable end for a knight of Erengs. He struggled against the encroaching darkness, questioning if this pathetic demise was truly an honorable end for a knight of Erengs. He struggled against the encroaching darkness, questioning if this pathetic demise was truly an honorable end for a knight of Erengs. He struggled against the encroaching darkness, questioning if this pathetic demise was truly an honorable end for a knight of Erengs. With his last breaths, he implored Gustav, a fellow knight, to convey his brave fight to his father, a task he himself could no longer perform. Gustav, his face etched with sorrow, promised to honor his friend's final wish. Gustav, his face etched with sorrow, promised to honor his friend's final wish. Gustav, his face etched with sorrow, promised to honor his friend's final wish. At that moment, our protagonist, Johann, intervened. Observing Leon's suffering, he decided to act, despite a slight reluctance to use his precious elixir on what he internally called that bastard. Nevertheless, he reasoned that a good deed, even for a reward, was worth doing. Approaching the dying knight, Johann offered a mysterious drink to ease Leon's pain. Leon, still apologetic for his perceived weakness, accepted the potion. Johann then simply told him to sleep peacefully. 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 To the astonishment of Gustav and the other knights, Leon didn't die. Instead, he awoke, completely pain-free and clear-headed, his body revitalized as if reborn. Instead, he awoke, completely pain-free and clear-headed, his body revitalized as if reborn. Instead, he awoke, completely pain-free and clear-headed, his body revitalized as if reborn. Instead, he awoke, completely pain-free and clear-headed, his body revitalized as if reborn. Instead, he awoke, completely pain-free and clear-headed, his body revitalized as if reborn. He marveled at the miraculous elixir, questioning its origin. He marveled at the miraculous elixir, questioning its origin. He marveled at the miraculous elixir, questioning its origin. Johann, with a calm demeanor, explained that it was the water of blessing, a miracle water for those at death's door, bestowed upon him by Svetlga, the mage of the Iphael River. Overwhelmed with relief and gratitude, Gustav embraced Leon, then turned to Johann, profusely thanking him for saving his comrade from a prolonged, agonizing death. Overwhelmed with relief and gratitude, Gustav embraced Leon, then turned to Johann, profusely thanking him for saving his comrade from a prolonged, agonizing death. Leon himself, now fully recovered, hailed Johann as the most honorable knight he had ever encountered among the lower races. Though slightly uncomfortable with the effusive praise, Johann humbly deflected it, suggesting they thank Svetlga instead. Yet Leon insisted that it was Johann who chose to use the precious water for his sake. The other knights, witnessing this astounding recovery and Johann's seemingly selfless act, were stirred. Gustav rallied them, declaring Johann a hero who had saved their brother. They pledged their deepest respect and praise, shouting, "Glory to the great Sir Johann." Despite his internal discomfort with such attention, Johann found himself hailed as a sworn brother by Gustav. He had only intended to make a small impression, but this outpouring of admiration was far beyond his initial expectations. He inwardly acknowledged his new, unintended status, one among many, Sir Johann, before outwardly declaring his readiness to raise his sword alongside them. Before outwardly declaring his readiness to raise his sword alongside them. Before outwardly declaring his readiness to raise his sword alongside them. The narrative then shifted to a different scene, introducing Swedliga, the mage, observing a chaotic battle. A monstrous roar echoed, signaling the presence of a formidable troll. Swedliga watched as Johann, in a display of raw, terrifying power, tore the troll apart barehanded. The mage was utterly astonished by his growth, marveling at how he had become even more powerful than in the past, his bare hands inflicting unimaginable damage. The mage was utterly astonished by his growth, marveling at how he had become even more powerful than in the past, his bare hands inflicting unimaginable damage. The mage was utterly astonished by his growth, marveling at how he had become even more powerful than in the past, his bare hands inflicting unimaginable damage. The mage was utterly astonished by his growth, marveling at how he had become even more powerful than in the past, his bare hands inflicting unimaginable damage. The mage was utterly astonished by his growth, marveling at how he had become even more powerful than in the past, his bare hands inflicting unimaginable damage. The mage was utterly astonished by his growth, marveling at how he had become even more powerful than in the past, his bare hands inflicting unimaginable damage. The troll's right arm was ripped, bones shattered, internal organs destroyed, and its jaw torn clean off, a brutal testament to Johann's strength. The troll's right arm was ripped, bones shattered, internal organs destroyed, and its jaw torn clean off, a brutal testament to Johann's strength. The troll's right arm was ripped, bones shattered, internal organs destroyed, and its jaw torn clean off, a brutal testament to Johann's strength. The troll's right arm was ripped, bones shattered, internal organs destroyed, and its jaw torn clean off, a brutal testament to Johann's strength. Swedliga approached the blood-soaked hero, asking how he achieved such a feat. Johann confessed he didn't know, stating he simply fought as if it were instinct. Johann confessed he didn't know, stating he simply fought as if it were instinct. Swedliga congratulated him on this achievement, suggesting they dispose of the troll's valuable corpse, noting its intact hide and blood would fetch a considerable price from the Marcel Trading Company. Swedliga congratulated him on this achievement, suggesting they dispose of the troll's valuable corpse, noting its intact hide and blood would fetch a considerable price from the Marcel Trading Company. Swedliga congratulated him on this achievement, suggesting they dispose of the troll's valuable corpse, noting its intact hide and blood would fetch a considerable price from the Marcel Trading Company. Swedliga congratulated him on this achievement, suggesting they dispose of the troll's valuable corpse, noting its intact hide and blood would fetch a considerable price from the Marcel Trading Company. Johann reflected on the concept of achievements, a word he'd never encountered in his previous life, where only resumes mattered. He understood now that defeating strong individuals earned titles, much like a game. His first title in this new world, Troll Slayer. His first title in this new world, Troll Slayer. His first title in this new world, Troll Slayer. His first title in this new world, Troll Slayer. Soon after, a knight from Dame Valien's group screamed in terror, mistaking Johann's returning wolf, Fenrir, for a monster. Fenrir, in fact, was merely herding the group's horses back. Johann calmly explained that it was just his pet dog, much to Dame Valien's confusion and the knight's continued terror. Dame Valien, however, remained suspicious. She questioned Johann's presence in a war zone between bandits and the Marcel subjugation force, asking if he came knowingly. With a chilling smile, Johann admitted he really loves that kind of thing, before casually asking if he could leave. With a chilling smile, Johann admitted he really loves that kind of thing, before casually asking if he could leave. With a chilling smile, Johann admitted he really loves that kind of thing, before casually asking if he could leave. With a chilling smile, Johann admitted he really loves that kind of thing, before casually asking if he could leave. Dame Valien, convinced he was a bandit due to his suspicious demeanor and unusual pet, refused to let him go and ordered her knights to capture him. Johann, angered by the accusation, unleashed his power, easily dispatching the knights. Johann, angered by the accusation, unleashed his power, easily dispatching the knights. Johann, angered by the accusation, unleashed his power, easily dispatching the knights. Johann, angered by the accusation, unleashed his power, easily dispatching the knights. Johann, angered by the accusation, unleashed his power, easily dispatching the knights. Johann, angered by the accusation, unleashed his power, easily dispatching the knights. Johann, angered by the accusation, unleashed his power, easily dispatching the knights. Johann, angered by the accusation, the knights. Johann, angered by the accusation, unleashed his power, easily dispatching the knights. He then revealed his true purpose. He was sent by Swatelga, the Ephile river mage, who had given him the water of blessing, and his destination was Baron Einbeck's hideout. He declared that he could end the subjugation. He declared that he could end the subjugation. He declared that he could end the subjugation. Recognizing the mage's name, Dame Valian, now convinced, agreed to Johann's request. She pledged her mobile forces for a swift strike against Einbeck's hideout before he could react. She even referred to Johann as her honorable human brother, eager to share the glory of the troll slayer's final blow. With their alliance formed, the knights prepared for battle, rallying to end the subjugation completely. With their alliance formed, the knights prepared for battle, rallying to end the subjugation completely. Hours later, the allied forces launched a surprise ambush on Baron Einbeck's hideout. The elf knights charged, cutting down the unprepared bandits. The elf knights charged, cutting down the unprepared bandits. The elf knights charged, cutting down the unprepared bandits. The elf knights charged, cutting down the unprepared bandits. Einbeck, alerted to the attack, frantically ordered his men to hold the line, believing he would be safe inside his tent. However, he soon realized that it was already there. Panicked, he fled, screaming, "Uwa, your majesty!" as he ran through the forest. He eventually reached a cliff, where he saw a shadowy figure. It was Johann, his eyes glowing ominously, who had pursued him. It was Johann, his eyes glowing ominously, who had pursued him. It was Johann, his eyes glowing ominously, who had pursued him. It was Johann, his eyes glowing ominously, who had pursued him. It was Johann, his eyes glowing ominously, who had pursued him. It was Johann, his eyes glowing ominously, who had pursued him. It was Johann, his eyes glowing ominously, who had pursued him. It was Johann, his eyes glowing ominously, who had pursued him. With a terrifying declaration, Johann announced, "Baron Einbeck, I've come to judge you." With a terrifying declaration, Johann announced, "Baron Einbeck, I've come to judge you." With a terrifying declaration, Johann announced, "Baron Einbeck, I've come to judge you." With a terrifying declaration, Johann announced, "Baron Einbeck, I've come to judge you." The battlefield was quiet, supplies being organized after a hard-fought encounter. Johann Eitz, a weary but resolute figure, prepared to depart with his company. He thanked his companions, acknowledging their devotion and sacrifice, a somber moment before they took their leave. Watching them from a distance, a portly figure, Baron Einbeck, seethed with frustration. Einbeck couldn't believe Johann was still alive. He had personally smeared the venom, Nesos's tear, on Johann's cup, regretting now that he hadn't poured the entire bottle down his throat. The audacity of those elves, always following Johann, also grated on his nerves. His perfect plan, it seemed, had gone awry, and he cursed the unexpected turn of events. Months before this moment, Einbeck had visited Sir Gazin at Eitz Castle in Gazin Barony. He had come to collect overdue war funds, but instead of money, he presented Gazin with a blank piece of paper. Einbeck explained that the Emperor once again required Gazin's assistance. Gazin, however, was in no mood to be used again. He had fought countless wars, listening to Einbeck's words, only to rot in a remote northern backwater while Einbeck pocketed the compensation Gazin deserved. He threatened to split Einbeck in half with his axe. Unfazed, Einbeck calmly asked Gazin to place his seal on the blank document. He promised that the seal of House Eitz on a blank page would become a symbol of blind loyalty to His Majesty. In exchange, Einbeck swore upon the noble name of Auvergne that the Emperor would personally appoint Gazin as a count. Gazin scoffed, reminding Einbeck that House Auvergne had fallen 50 years ago and called his boasting wretched. Einbeck merely threw a bag of coins at Gazin, who reluctantly took them. Gazin warned Einbeck that if he pocketed his achievements one more time, he would rip out Einbeck's tongue. Einbeck agreed, then praised Gazin's loyalty, claiming it would play a great role in achieving His Majesty's greater will. He then revealed the document Gazin had signed, now filled with text, unmistakably plotting rebellion. An imperial bodyguard named Karamov observed Einbeck's scheme. She deduced his true intention, to frame the northern houses who had fought for the Emperor with accusations of treason, triggering a large-scale purge. She sarcastically called it a noble plan, her words laced with a subtle bite. Einbeck sensed her disdain, but she denied it, claiming only to admire his repugnant cunning and talent. She expressed contempt that such a person existed within the honorable House Auvergne. Gazin interjected, telling Karamov to watch her tongue. He accused her of slaughtering not just soldiers but women and children during the northern campaign, questioning her right to lecture him on honor. He called her the Emperor's hunting dog. Karamov, unmoved, declared herself the Emperor's sword, moving only by sacred command. She asserted that the Emperor's honor weighed heavier than all lives on the continent, making it her own. Unlike Gason, who clung to life through filthy deception and betrayal, she was pure in her loyalty. With a swift movement, she stabbed Gason in the hand with a hidden blade, threatening to tear out his blood vessels if he dared to insult the Emperor's command again. Wounded, Gason reluctantly promised to bear her words in mind. Einbeck, watching the scene, inwardly cursed Karamov for failing to kill Gason. Still, he convinced himself it didn't matter, believing he would ultimately be the one to laugh. His moment of triumph was short-lived. A subordinate rushed to Johann, reporting a dire problem. The Marcel Trading Company had been captured by the very mercenaries who had betrayed them. Einbeck's laughter echoed, a chilling sound of pure malice. He gloated, mocking his adversaries for not seeing this coming, for thinking everything would go according to their plan. He called Johann a lowly bastard, convinced his counter-move had secured victory. Johann's subordinate despaired, lamenting that they had won the battle but lost the war, with Marcel breached. Another suggested abandoning the stronghold, but Johann remained resolute. It was too early to give up, he declared. They would at least try to fight. The old man, Baron Einbeck, laughed maniacally, convinced he had outmaneuvered his opponent, Johann, proclaiming that while the battle might have been won, the war was lost. He continued his taunts, declaring Johann pathetic, and asserting that any further advance would only lead to his death. Johann's companions had urged caution, fearing the dangers of entering the castle and even suggesting they abandon Marcel. But Johann Yaitz, fueled by a deep-seated rage and an unyielding resolve, refused to give up, insisting it was not too early to fight. Einbeck boasted that Bradil had captured Magistrate Villacot and was en route with Marcel's surrender proclamation, promising that once Marcel was under their control, Johann would be his first demand. The Baron's threats grew darker, vowing to sever Johann's tendons, parade him across the empire to prove Karamov incompetent, and ultimately hang him. In his final cruel flourish, Einbeck planned to whisper into Johann's ear that he was the one who had killed his father. He charged forward, a blur of motion, striking down Einbeck before the Baron could fully react, leaving him stunned and defeated. Outside the city walls, a commotion arose as the people wondered about the magistrate's presence. 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 To Einbeck's utter shock, Magistrate Villacot appeared, alive and well, extending his congratulations to Johann for his success and safe return. To Einbeck's utter shock, Magistrate Villacot appeared, alive and well, extending his congratulations to Johann for his success and safe return. Outside the city walls, a commotion arose as the people wondered about the magistrate's presence. To Einbeck's utter shock, Magistrate Villacot appeared, alive and well, extending his congratulations to Johann for his success and safe return. Extending his congratulations to Johann for his success and safe return. Extending his congratulations to Johann for his success and safe return. Johann humbly credited the mercenaries for their efforts, leaving Einbeck bewildered by the turn of events. A flashback revealed Johann's cunning plan, set in motion the night before. He had approached Goran and Khan, two mercenaries, with a crucial request. Knowing Einbeck's intimate understanding of Marcel's defensive systems, Johann had tasked them with protecting Magistrate Villacot from Einbeck's infiltration. The mercenaries, initially boastful, successfully carried out their mission. Johann praised their excellent work with a peculiar set of words that left them momentarily confused, but ultimately affirmed their success. He then confronted Baron Einbeck directly, stating the time had come for him to answer for his crimes. Einbeck, now captured, frantically demanded to know Bradil's whereabouts, only to watch in horror as Bradil himself was carried away, defeated. The victory bells soon rang out across Marcel, the city of freedom and trade, announcing the successful bandit subjugation and the completion of the second bandit subjugation division mission. Darkness had threatened to consume the city, with treacherous mercenaries, bandit hordes, and trolls seeking to shatter its walls. But then, Johann appeared, shining like a guiding star. He became known as Johann Yaitz, Marcel's troll slayer, his name striking like iron, his courage burning like flame. The citizens sang of his deeds, hailing him as their hero. Amidst the celebrations, Johann met with Iaun, who thanked him for the difficult battle and offered him a drink. Johann met with Iaun, who thanked him for the difficult battle and offered him a drink. Later, Johann requested a settlement for his services. Iaun presented the statement for the subjugation operation's reward and spoils. The successful subjugation operation alone brought in 40 gold coins, with the bullhead mercenaries receiving 30 silver coins and 100 bronze coins. Johann was astonished by the substantial sum. 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 Jan continued, detailing the monster's spoils. Troll hide fetched 10 gold coins and 60 silver coins, and troll blood, sinews, and special part meat added another 25 gold coins. The grand total amounted to an astonishing 35 gold coins, 230 silver coins, and 130 bronze coins. Johann was overwhelmed by the vast wealth he had accumulated. The question lingered in the air: would Johann, now enriched by war compensation, finally put an end to his wandering life? After the intense Marcel battle, a week of peaceful celebration had begun. Johann Eitz, the hero who valiantly defeated the troll, was the center of attention. His friend Gustav, among many others, was particularly enthusiastic and quite drunk, clinging to Johann as the festivities continued late into the night. Johann, amidst the revelry, found himself reflecting on this tranquil interlude, feeling that all the hardships he had endured were justified by such moments. Glasses were raised in honor of Johann, the life-giving Ifael River, and the wise sage Svetlga. As the drunken celebration continued, filled with praise for Johann and questions about his heroic feat, Sage Swetla quietly pulled him aside. The sage acknowledged the remarkable achievement, recognizing its potential impact beyond Marcel, affecting the entire empire. He then directly asked Johann about his true desires: wealth, glory, or perhaps power. Johann, without hesitation, simply expressed a wish for a peaceful life within Marcel. Svetlaga found this answer perplexing. He wondered how a man who yearned for peace could have single-handedly killed a troll. He recalled how he had nearly died and had given Johann the sacred blessing of the Ifael River, only for Johann to use it so casually. Johann, however, defended his actions, explaining that he could not stand by while a comrade faced death, and saving them also earned him valuable points with Vilako. Despite his initial annoyance, Svetlga admitted he was relieved to see Johann return safely. The sage then shared an old prophecy from the Ifael River: Johann was never meant to settle in Marcel. He pondered if Johann had somehow defied this fate through his own strength. Johann, ever practical, attempted to get Svetlga to refill his water of blessing. Svetlga, after a moment of consideration, agreed, but first instructed Johann to rescue branch manager Jaun. Johann was momentarily confused by the request. Back at the celebration, Gustav was still in high spirits, trying to coax Jaun into dancing. Johann intervened, politely asking Gustav if he might have the honor of dancing with Jaun for a single song. Gustav, still caught up in a celebratory mood, readily agreed. As Johann and Jaun danced, a pensive mood fell over him. For this fleeting moment, however, he decided to simply surrender to the rhythm and live fully in the present. He wondered how long such a peaceful life could truly last, concluding that its duration was unknown. For this fleeting moment, however, he decided to simply surrender to the rhythm and live fully in the present. The next morning, Johann awoke with a throbbing headache, a fuzzy ball of fur beside him, and only vague memories of the previous night's warm moment. He discovered a small bottle labeled "The Water of Blessing" and a note from Sage Svetlaga. The note revealed that the bottle contained the secret of the Ifael River. Johann, still piecing together the events of the night, realized the implications of Svetlaga's words and the furry companion. Svetlaga explained that he had left it there, not wanting to interrupt Johann's warm moment, and subtly invited him to the Ifael River if he ever thought of the game of gods. He gratefully acknowledged Svetlaga. He then used the Water of Blessing, and its effects were instantaneous and remarkably potent, completely curing his hangover. Feeling refreshed, he looked out the window, only to discover the entire town of Marcel engulfed in roaring flames. Sir Johann Eitz found himself in a terrifying vision, standing amidst a fearful crowd in the city of Marcel. Flames flickered around them, casting long, dancing shadows. His gaze fixed on a young boy named Einbeck, trapped in a cage, surrounded by oil, his mother nearby, her face etched with despair. The city's magistrate, Vilako, then addressed the citizens. He offered a hollow apology for what he called his negligence, claiming a shadow of chaos had fallen upon Marcel. He attributed this to the betrayal of certain nobles acting under the emperor's orders who had allegedly attempted to seize control of the city. Vilako vowed to lodge a formal protest against the emperor. His words were swiftly followed by brutal action. The accused nobles, along with Einbeck and his mother, were burned alive in their cages. Johann watched, horrified, as the mother's last thoughts were of her little angel, Einbeck, wishing only to return to a time when life was simpler. Everything, bodies, ambitions, dreams, slipped away meaninglessly in the inferno. Vilaco, unmoved, declared that he, Marcel's magistrate, would always repay both kindness and enmity. A messenger soon approached Johann, stating that Vilaco wished to meet him privately. Our boy, still reeling from the horrific spectacle, wondered what the magistrate could possibly be plotting. Vilaco welcomed Johann to his chambers and offered him a drink. He praised Johann's unmatched strategy and martial prowess, highlighting his outstanding strategic thinking and the human warmth that could inspire others. Vilaco then laid out his proposition. Johann should become the vanguard for Marcel in an upcoming war against the Emperor, a role he believed would allow Johann to fully display his abilities and fulfill his ambitions. Johann politely refused. He explained that he preferred a stable and modest life over battle, having no intention of becoming a vanguard in a war against the Emperor. Vilaco dismissed this notion, arguing that Marseille, the continent's greatest commercial city, had always been a battleground for pro- and anti-emperor factions. He pointed out how the emperor's ambition had destroyed all balance, citing the countless massacres in the north, including Johann's own former territory. Vilaco insisted that the peace Johann spoke of no longer existed in the empire, and war was inevitable. He then made an even bolder offer. If Johann would follow him, Vilaco would make him the emperor. Johann pondered Vilaco's words. Despite the incredible power and wealth promised, he ultimately chose to refuse. He understood that money was necessary for survival, but felt there was more to life than just that. He saw the current empire as steeped in chaos, beyond control, and questioned how one could truly live in such an age by simply fighting for power. Soon after, Johann prepared to depart Marseille with his small retinue. He had acquired new armor, spending a significant 11 gold coins, the price of a military horse. Though costly, the armor fit perfectly, and its weight was reassuring. His companion, Godin, asked if they were heading to war. Johann clarified his true intentions. Vilaco's actions had shattered his plan to settle in Marseille. Instead of becoming a pawn in the magistrate's grand schemes, Johann announced their destination, a place full of manly dreams and adventure. Godin, thrilled by the prospect, eagerly expressed his excitement. Their journey concluded at Zarpin County's Boson Castle. There, Count Zarpin, rumored to be the troll slayer, awaited them. He intended to look Johann in the face and determine whether this newcomer was merely a bragging brat or possessed genuine strength. After 5 grueling days, our protagonist, Johann, found himself far from Marseille, his body caked in sweat and dust. The journey was proving to be a harsh reality, as bugs swarmed around him and the bread he ate was hard enough to be a weapon. He was struggling, feeling the unfamiliar stench of beastmen assault his nose, and wondered if he could truly endure this new path. A day before his departure, Johann had been in Marseille seeking mercenaries. The Katana Trading Company, known for its beastman affiliates, was ready to present a group. The mercenaries, led by Dyke, a hyena beastman, and Shuka, a badger beastman, were intimidating figures. Johann of House Yates introduced himself, and to his surprise, his name resonated with them. They recognized him as Marcel's troll slayer, a famous knight. The mercenaries were puzzled why such a renowned figure would hire them, but Johann simply explained that numbers were an advantage when dealing with bandits in remote areas. With that, the deal was struck, and the Katana mercenaries joined his cause. 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 Before he left Marseille, a representative from the Katana Trading Company approached him with a farewell gift. She bestowed upon him a troll slayer emblem, a symbol of his recent heroic feat. Noticing his undecided destination, she also handed him a letter. The mercenaries immediately recognized the sender, Count Jarpin, an incredibly famous figure in the southern territories. They excitedly told Johann that the Count was renowned for his contributions to monster extermination campaigns, having even slain trolls himself. More importantly, he was the only one in the region capable of performing a knighting ceremony, a significant event that offered a knight recognition, sponsorship, and a fast track to advancement and powerful backing. Johann saw this as an incredible opportunity, a chance to gain both wealth and a prestigious title. Johann saw this as an incredible opportunity, a chance to gain both wealth and a prestigious title. Johann saw this as an incredible opportunity, a chance to gain both wealth and a prestigious title. Johann saw this as an incredible opportunity, a chance to gain both wealth and a prestigious title. Johann saw this as an incredible opportunity, a chance to gain both wealth and a prestigious title. Johann saw this as an incredible opportunity, a chance to gain both wealth and a prestigious title. Johann saw this as an incredible opportunity, a chance to gain both wealth and a prestigious title. Johann saw this as an incredible opportunity, a chance to gain both wealth and a prestigious title. Johann saw this as an incredible opportunity, a chance to gain both wealth and a prestigious title. Johann saw this as an incredible opportunity, a chance to gain both wealth and a prestigious title. Johann saw this as an incredible opportunity, a chance to gain both wealth and a prestigious title. Johann saw this as an incredible opportunity, a chance to gain both wealth and a prestigious title. Johann saw this as an incredible opportunity, a chance to gain both wealth and a prestigious title. Johann saw this as an incredible opportunity, a chance to gain both wealth and a prestigious title. Johann saw this as an incredible opportunity, a chance to gain both wealth and a prestigious title. Johann saw this as an incredible opportunity, a chance to gain both wealth and a prestigious title. Johann saw this as an incredible opportunity, a chance to gain both wealth and a prestigious title. Johann saw this as an incredible opportunity, a chance to gain both wealth and a prestigious title. Johann saw this as an incredible opportunity, a chance to gain both wealth and a prestigious title. Johann saw this as an incredible opportunity, a chance to gain both wealth and a prestigious title. As they traveled, a strong stench of blood filled the air, and Johann's instincts told him something was amiss. Approaching the checkpoint, he ordered his men to stay alert. They encountered a group of men dressed as knights, stopping them for an inspection. Johann identified himself, but when he asked for their rank and affiliation, they became evasive, demanding the gift to let them pass. Johann revealed he was a guest of Count Jarpen, hoping to deter them, but the leader, clearly a bandit in disguise, grew frustrated. He called Johann an irritating bastard and commanded his crossbowmen to fire. He 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 commanded his crossbowmen to fire. Johann, unfazed, told the bandit leader to go screw himself, emphasizing that he would rather avoid bloodshed for the sake of his men. The crossbowmen unleashed a volley of arrows, but Johann invoked K Aram Avav, a powerful force that deflected the projectiles. He charged forward, a blue aura emanating from him, tearing through the bandits with surprising speed and precision. Dyke and the other beastmen joined the fray, declaring it hunting time, and quickly overwhelming their foes. 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 Reflecting on the swift victory, Johann recalled a past encounter where he had been chased by wolves and barely escaped by hiding in a merchant caravan. Back then, he realized he could never break through a checkpoint alone. Now, with his mercenaries, the situation was resolved in mere minutes with a single command. His men soon reported that all enemies had been subdued. His men soon reported that all enemies had been subdued. His men soon reported that all enemies had been subdued. His men soon reported that all enemies had been subdued. His men soon reported that all enemies had been subdued. However, the true horror of the situation was soon revealed. Among the dead, one of the beastmen found a stolen necklace, noting that even beasts were more decent than these attackers. The source of the overpowering blood stench became clear: scattered civilian corpses. Johann interrogated a captured knight, who confessed they were deserters from Jarpen Castle. He revealed that their side was losing a war, and they had been on the run ever since. The captive looked at Johann, bewildered, asking if he truly didn't know what was happening. Johann's world reeled as he processed the chilling news. Jarpen Castle was under attack, and Count Jarpen was fighting a war. 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 Our wandering knight, Johann, stumbled upon a group of injured men, their bodies battered and their spirits broken. He learned a grim truth: Count Jarpen was embroiled in a fierce war with House Abner. The men confessed to being deserters, fleeing Jarpen Castle after Abner's massive force surrounded it. A foolish commander had shattered their morale, and with supplies cut off, starvation had begun to set in. Johann, ever the pragmatist, offered no mercy to those who turned to pillaging, executing one on the spot. Godin, his companion, asked the pressing question: what was their next move? Reaching Count Jarpin meant traversing a brutal battlefield. Johann pondered the situation, realizing Jarpin might have invited him to participate in the war, perhaps offering a knighthood for his service. Yet, the thought of another war, another fight, weighed heavily on him. The battlefield stood as an impenetrable barrier, blocking his path to the castle. As they deliberated, a vast merchant caravan appeared on the horizon, its long line stretching out of sight. Johann, seeing an opportunity, decided they would let the merchants pass. He reasoned that the caravan must be headed towards either Jarpin or Abner, making them a potential conduit. Remembering his previous journey with the Ulden's trading company, he hatched a plan. Joining the merchants might allow him to bypass the war zone and enter Jarpin Castle without incident. With Dyke and Shuka as his guards, he approached the caravan, intending to introduce himself. The merchant guards were immediately hostile, demanding identification. Johann declared himself Johann of House Yates. But when pressed about his lack of a house crest, he found himself unable to answer. How could he explain that his house was ruined, and he himself was a knight hunted by the emperor? The guards, seeing his hesitation, branded him a bandit knight and threatened him, giving him one last chance to leave. Suddenly, a portly man stepped forward, intervening with a shout. It was Merchant Doris, who had recognized Johann's Troll Slayer emblem, a mark of honor granted by Marcel himself. Doris quickly apologized for his guard's rudeness, acknowledging Johann as a great knight. He then extended an invitation to a small banquet, hoping to atone for their insolence. Johann, accepting the offer, found himself at a surprisingly lavish feast, though Doris humbly called it modest. He remained cautious, checking for poison, but was reassured by the water of blessing he carried. During the banquet, a familiar, boisterous figure appeared. Khan, an old acquaintance who had fought alongside Johann before. Khan, overly enthusiastic, recounted their past battles and exaggerated their close bond, much to Johann's quiet amusement. After a brief exchange, Johann politely dismissed Khan, expressing a desire for a more intimate conversation with Doris. Alone with the merchant, Doris continued to praise Johann's noble character. Johann, deciding to repay the hospitality, leaned in conspiratorially. "The truth is," he began, his voice dropping to a serious tone, "Gamson was the name of a traitor." The words hung in the air, chilling and precise. Doris's face instantly blanched, sweat beading on his forehead as his eyes widened in sudden, profound fear. The chapter opened with Johann revealing a shocking truth. Gamson, thought to be an ally, was in fact a traitor. This revelation plunged the room into immediate chaos as guards were called and people screamed in panic. Amidst the pandemonium, Lord Doris's 1st Division commander burst onto the scene, demanding an explanation for the sudden upheaval. Soon after, the 2nd Division commander arrived, equally bewildered by the disarray and the disappearance of Lord Doris himself. The scene was one of utter destruction and confusion. The story then rewound to a week earlier, shifting to the Argonne Trading Company barracks. Lord Doris, a portly and cunning merchant, had gathered his associates for a meeting. He began by explaining their current venture, supporting House Abner by supplying war materials. Specifically, they were to aid Sir Stefan, the youngest son of House Abner, who was leading the siege against Castle in Zarpen. The other merchants were taken aback, having believed their journey was for ordinary trade. Doris, however, scoffed at their lack of information. He elaborated on the war between House Abner and Zarpen House, highlighting Sir Stefan's role in the ongoing siege. Doris's audacious plan was to sell war materials directly to Sir Stefan. This pronouncement drew gasps and protests from the other merchants, who were quick to point out Stefan's reputation as a notorious fool. They questioned the wisdom of doing business with such an incompetent figure. Doris, unfazed, acknowledged Stefan's foolishness, but then unveiled the true depths of his scheme. If Stefan were to squander their goods, they wouldn't suffer a loss. Instead, they would demand double the amount from Stefan's mother, Countess Abner. The merchants expressed concern about potentially insulting the powerful countess, but Doris had an answer for that too. He reminded them of the countess's clever daughter, Lady Ulrich, known for her cunning and strong will, and the designated heir to the house. Recalling rumors, the merchants noted that despite Ulrich's capabilities, the countess seemed to favor Stefan. Doris confirmed this, explaining that the countess had appointed Stefan as commander precisely to provide him with military achievements. Their strategy was simple yet brilliant: supply materials to Stefan, officially bill the countess for the cost, and then she would be compelled to pay whatever price they demanded to uphold the honor of her house. The other merchants were thoroughly impressed by this manipulative plan. With his scheme laid bare, Doris enthusiastically instructed his men to prepare to aid Abner. A few days later, the merchant caravan was on its way. Doris grew impatient when his scouts failed to report back. Then his eyes widened as he spotted a familiar figure in the distance, recognizing him as the troll slayer of Marcel. Doris quickly put two and two together, realizing that the rumor of Zarpin County inviting the troll slayer, Johann, was true. He saw an incredible opportunity. Capturing a future enemy noble like him could earn him immense credit in the ongoing war and potentially unimaginable rewards. He barked an order to his men. Moments later, Johann found himself bound. He confronted Doris, calling the situation ridiculous and demanding to know the implications of his actions. Doris's men tried to feign innocence, claiming they were merely offering proper hospitality. Johann, however, turned to his own companions, Khan and Goran, and asked them to reiterate Doris's orders. They confirmed that Doris had commanded them to restrain Johann and attack his party. Enraged by their betrayal, Doris lashed out at his men. Johann calmly pointed out that Doris had just admitted to his treachery. He explained that he had been testing their loyalties, and it was now clear they sided with Abner. With a swift, decisive move, Johann struck Doris, who cried out in pain. Johann then reminded the cowering merchant that he had violated hospitality customs and gravely insulted a noble, asking if Doris understood the severe punishments for such offenses. Terrified, Doris pleaded for mercy, promising to obey any command Johann gave. Johann considered his options. Godin, one of Johann's companions, voiced a practical concern. Even if they were to proceed to Zarpin Castle with Doris, Abner's encircling forces would make entry impossible, let alone a meeting with Count Zarpin. Johann, however, had conceived a different approach. He declared that at dawn the following day, they would depart toward Abner's forces, who were besieging Zarpin Castle. Godin was utterly astonished, questioning if Johann truly meant they would head for the enemy's main camp. Unaware of Johann's true intentions, his party set off with Doris's merchants. 3 days later, they arrived at Abner's front lines. Johann gazed at the vast military base, a grim look on his face, observing that they had finally reached their destination. The chapter concluded with a striking image of Abner House's formidable military base, a clear indication of the danger that lay ahead. The sun beat down on the vast encampment as Johann and his companions finally arrived at House Abner's military base. Inside the commander's tent, the atmosphere was anything but calm. Commander Stefan Abner, a hot-headed and arrogant young lord, was locked in a heated discussion with his chief of staff. Morale was at an all-time low, with soldiers deserting in droves due to delayed supplies and wages. Stefan, however, dismissed these concerns, too focused on his own desire to attack the besieged Boson castle without proper siege weapons. A few days earlier, Johann's group had encountered a band of brigands near Jarpen. These weren't just any bandits. They were deserters from Stefan Abner's very own army, driven to desperation by their commander's foolish leadership and the prolonged, ill-equipped siege of Count Jarpen's Boson castle. Johann's group had decisively wiped them out. Now, back at the Abner camp, a wave of excitement rippled through the ranks. News arrived that a massive shipment of supplies was approaching, carried by merchants. Stefan, overjoyed, declared they would buy everything, casually remarking that payment could be sourced from his mother. His chief of staff could only sigh in exasperation at his commander's reckless attitude towards finances. It was at this moment that Johann Yaitz, a knight unknown to Stefan, requested an audience. Entering the tent, Johann introduced himself as a guest of Count Jarpen. He then presented a travel pass for the merchant accompanying the supplies, a man named Doris, noting that the guarantor for this pass was Abner's himself. Johann calmly explained that this very merchant, Doris, had attempted to kidnap him and hand him over to Stefan. Therefore, by right of seizure, Johann now owned Doris and all the incoming supplies. Stefan erupted in a fit of rage, realizing Doris had acted without his orders. His chief of staff quickly advised against granting Johann's claims, highlighting the dire state of their finances. Johann, unfazed, offered a compromise. Stefan could purchase the supplies from him at a reasonable price, or he would simply proceed to Count Jarpen's castle empty-handed, leaving Abner's army without critical provisions. When Stefan's chief of staff tried to explain their lack of funds, Stefan stubbornly refused Johann's offer, demanding proof that the merchant had indeed attacked him. To Stefan's shock, Doris, the merchant in question, stepped forward and confessed that Johann's account was true. Despite the confession, Stefan, still blinded by his own arrogance, dismissed Johann's words as outright lies. He ordered his men to seize Johann. Johann, whose honor had been publicly insulted, seized the opportunity. He knew Stefan was an arrogant young master who would react violently to even the slightest provocation. As Stefan drew his sword, Johann swiftly disarmed him. creating a perfect justification for his next move. The chief of staff watched in stunned silence as Johann held Stefan captive. Johann warned Stefan that drawing a sword first carried the responsibility of one's life. Suddenly, the chief of staff recognized the crest on Johann's armor. It was the legendary symbol of Marcel's troll slayer. Realizing they were facing a renowned hero, Stefan's men were ordered to stand down. Johann then demanded recompense for the insult to his honor. Terrified and desperate, Stefan immediately apologized, admitting that everything was his fault. Johann, having achieved his goal, calmly declared that as the victor of an honorable duel, he would be taking Sir Stefan with him. Stefan, aghast, questioned if Johann wasn't afraid of House Abner, but Johann simply reminded him that he had just admitted everything was his fault. The chief of staff, seeing no other option, advised Stefan to comply. Meanwhile, at Bozon Castle's main gate, the weary guards, exhausted from the prolonged siege, grumbled about the tiresome Abner forces. They spotted a group of merchants approaching, surprisingly, passing directly through the Abner camp. Suddenly, a frantic cry echoed through the castle. The Abner commander-in-chief, Stefan, has been captured. In a whirlwind of shock and urgency, the castle gates were ordered to swing open, leaving everyone to wonder what would happen next. The formidable Bozon Castle, a stronghold within Zafen County, suddenly witnessed a shocking sight. The commander-in-chief of the Abner army, Stefan, was paraded through its gates, captured. Whispers rippled through the crowd, unable to believe that such a high-ranking officer, the very figure who was supposed to end the war, had been brought in as a prisoner. The gates swung open, welcoming the procession, and the people inside acknowledged the man responsible for this monumental capture. Stefan, now within the inner castle, was bewildered by his predicament. He had been caught doing something foolish at his own command post, a blunder that only reinforced the rumors of his incompetence. Despite his captive status, Stefan, a son of House Abner, brazenly demanded to be untied and treated with the respect he believed he deserved. The guards, perhaps intimidated by his lineage, complied. He then insisted on being taken to Lord Zappen immediately. Johann, the young knight responsible for his capture, watched Stefan's display of confidence with a keen eye, noting the prisoner's audacity. Stefan finally stood before Count Zarpen, greeting him familiarly as Uncle Zarpen. The Count, however, swiftly corrected him, reminding him that this was a public setting where formalities must be observed. Zarpen expressed his astonishment at seeing Stefan as a prisoner, especially since he was leading the attack on Bozon Castle. He openly called Stefan's current state a pathetic display, leaving Stefan utterly shamed. Considering the familial ties between their houses, Count Zarpen declared that Bozon Castle would treat Stefan as a guest, not an enemy. Stefan, relieved, offered his thanks. But the Count quickly clarified that since Stefan had been captured by Johann Yates, the ownership of Stefan as a prisoner legally belonged to the young knight. Stefan erupted in outrage, demanding how someone as precious as himself could be entrusted to a lowly person like Johann. Count Zarpen, however, firmly questioned whether Stefan expected him to violate the sacred customs of war and rob a knight of his rightful ransom. Understanding the gravity of the custom, where a captured noble became personal property, redeemable only through a price, Stefan reluctantly conceded. The Chamberlain was then ordered to escort Stefan away. With Stefan handled, Johann finally had his audience with Count Zarpen. He introduced himself as the Troll Slayer of Marcel, expressing his honor at the meeting. Johann, hoping to make a strong impression and secure a knighthood, accepted the Count's invitation to discuss matters while touring the castle. Count Zarpen began by asking if Johann knew the true reason for his summons. Johann initially assumed it was due to the ongoing war, but observing the castle's sturdy defenses and the peaceful atmosphere, he realized his assumption was incorrect. Count Zarpen confirmed that the war posed no significant threat to him. He admitted his true motivation was simple curiosity. The Count recounted his own youthful encounter with a troll, an experience that, though successful, cost him half his precious knights due to his recklessness, a painful memory. Johann noticed the Count's armor, indeed made of troll hide, confirming the truth of his story. Count Zarpen then revealed his initial skepticism, confessing he had thought Johann was a mere braggart for claiming to defeat a troll single-handedly, and he had intended to teach him a lesson. Johann's heart sank, realizing the Count had doubted him. But then, with a dramatic gesture, the Count declared Johann to be the real deal. Johann was taken aback. Count Zarpen then showered him with praise, acknowledging his feats, capturing the enemy's merchant caravan, cutting off their supplies, and seizing their commander on the battlefield. He unequivocally stated that Johann's arrival had effectively brought the war to a close. Johann, flattered, tried to downplay his accomplishments, but the Count insisted that excessive humility was not always beneficial. Relieved that he hadn't made a negative impression, Johann decided to press his advantage for knighthood. He offered the captured Doris merchant caravan to the Count as a token of his respect. To Johann's shock, Count Zarpen erupted in anger, demanding if Johann took him for a man who lacked honor. The Count sternly explained that he would buy the caravan for a generous price and grant Johann a separate reward for his achievements, insisting he not refuse. Johann, now understanding, agreed. Count Zarpen promised him the best treatment during his stay, urging him to rest and relax. Johann thanked the Count, noting his fiery but ultimately good nature. He reminded himself to maintain this positive standing, especially since he was already being pursued by the Empire. He could not afford to incur the wrath of a powerful count before achieving knighthood. Meanwhile, in the main castle of Abner County, news of Stefan's capture reached Countess Abner. Her fury was palpable as she demanded to know who had dared to capture her son. The answer came: a knight named Johann Yates from a house no one had ever heard of. The Countess's roar of rage reverberated through the castle, and Johann Yates, unaware of the storm he had stirred, continued to believe he was successfully avoiding the bad side of powerful people. Chaos erupted within the grand halls of Abner Castle. The Countess Abner, her face contorted with rage, demanded answers. Her son, Stefan, had been brazenly captured from the very heart of their base, a humiliation she could not bear. Her advisors, trembling, tried to explain that Stefan's own poor conduct had made it impossible to protect him, only fueling her fury further. Screaming for their immediate beheading, she seemed beyond reason. Suddenly, a new voice cut through the tension. Ulrike Abner, the eldest daughter and a figure of calm authority, stepped forward. With a quiet command, she halted the guards. She argued that Stefan's capture was a direct result of his own foolishness, and they could not afford to lose competent advisors over one man's mistake. Turning her gaze to her mother, Ulrike starkly laid out the truth. Stefan's appointment as commander-in-chief, the massive military losses, the reparations, and now his ransom all were consequences of her mother's choices. With a decisive declaration, Ulrike proclaimed herself the next matriarch and vowed to resolve the dire situation. Meanwhile, a vastly different scene unfolded at Zarpen Castle. Sir Johann, the protagonist of our story, was basking in the glow of a successful trade. He had just exchanged goods from Doris, securing a fortune that far surpassed the annual income of the entire Yates estate. His advisor, however, reminded him that the biggest prize was yet to come: Stefan's ransom. Johann understood the high-stakes game of a knight's life. Capture meant immense profit, while being captured meant ruin. Having seized Stefan, the son of a prominent house, Johann held the power to name his price. The Lord of Zarpen, pleased with Johann's prowess, bestowed upon him lavish gifts: a silver shield, a sword engraved with the Troll Slayer crest, dwarven chainmail, and a magnificent horse named Donum, mixed with monster blood. Johann expressed his gratitude. Then the Lord hinted at another reward: an introduction to a noble suitable for marriage, an opportunity for Johann to forge powerful connections. Thrilled at the prospect, Johann eagerly followed him. He was led to a room where Stefan, still a prisoner, awaited him. The Lord departed, leaving the two men alone. Stefan, true to his arrogant nature, immediately launched into a tirade, calling Johann a lowly brat and challenging him to a duel once he returned home. Johann, ever the provocateur, calmly asked why they couldn't settle it then, implying Stefan's helplessness without his mother's protection. Enraged, Stefan boasted of his Abner bloodline, claiming superiority. Johann merely shrugged, then asked a crucial question: how much did Stefan believe his house would pay for his freedom? Stefan, still defiant, refused to speak to someone he deemed beneath him. Johann then picked up a hot poker, its tip glowing menacingly. The threat of pain quickly broke Stefan's resolve. He stammered that he was worth 100 imperial gold coins, then, in a desperate attempt to inflate his value, quickly corrected himself to 200. Johann, surprised by the sum, then pressed for more information, asking about Countess Abner. Stefan, intimidated, revealed the true cause of the war. The greedy Countess Abner had demanded a silver mine as a pretext for a same-sex marriage between their daughters. Zarpen, finding the demand excessive, had refused, leading Abner to declare war. Johann now understood why Zarpen had been so generous with Stefan. All high-ranking nobles were intricately intertwined. Stefan then impatiently demanded wine, complaining about the delay and even questioning if Johann had fermented it himself. Johann, initially appearing to comply, paused. He then held out the glass and, with a chilling smile, instructed Stefan to drink it first. A servant approached Sir Stefan, carrying a glass of wine. When asked if he had fermented the wine himself, the servant confessed it was seized from Doris, implying its questionable origins. This covers Stefan and Ulrike seated, providing context to the origins. Servants why yes to being asked. Ulrike sipping, another questionable action. Just as Stefan reached for the glass, Johann intervened, stopping the servant and inquiring why the glass was already filled. The servant, flustered, apologized, admitting his ignorance of proper etiquette. Johann then offered the servant a reward for his hard work, instructing him to drink the wine. The servant hesitated, but under Johann's stern gaze, he reluctantly complied. Immediately, the servant collapsed, convulsing and screaming apologies as blood spurted from his mouth. Stefan watched in horror as the man died. Johann calmly explained that the wine contained Nessus's tear, a deadly poison. Ulrich's terrified eye as part of the horror. Servant's final moments. A flashback revealed the servant's desperation. A hooded figure had offered him 2 gold coins to apply a thin layer of the poison to Stefan's glass. The servant rationalized the act, believing Stefan, an enemy combatant, deserved his fate and that this single act could save his own family from ruin. Servant's desperation. Family from ruin. Back in the present, Stefan, enraged, accused the dead servant of poisoning a noble. The servant's dying words were a desperate plea that it wasn't him. Johann then clarified the situation, revealing that the poison was in Stefan's glass, not the servant's, meaning someone had tried to kill Stefan himself. Ulrich's rage starts at this revelation. Her rage continues, her screaming in rage. A wave of realization washed over Stefan, and he immediately blamed his sister Ulrich for the assassination attempt, calling her a crazy woman and a lunatic who had always hated him. Ulrich kneeling, you Ulrich, kneeling, you Ulrich, confirming blame. Ulrich screaming in rage. Ulrich's face, that crazy woman, confirming Stefan's words. Johann, observing Stefan's erratic behavior, mused internally about the common saying that siblings were often hardwired to hate each other. Stefan, shaken, declared his intention to report everything to the Countess. Stefan's erratic behavior. Ulrich screaming, part of erratic behavior. Johann's musing, Stefan's erratic behavior. Johann's internal musing illustrated. Meanwhile, at the main gate of Boson Castle in Zarpin County, guards loyal to Count Zarpin sealed off the area, announcing that no one could enter or leave, with immediate execution for non-compliance. Outside the castle, the hooded figures who had orchestrated the poisoning expressed their disappointment in the servant's failure, noting Stefan's luck. They decided to report back to Lady Ulrich. Inside, Count Zarpin confronted one of the hooded figures, accusing him of betrayal and ordering his immediate beheading, his head to be displayed at the castle gate. This is the visual consequence of the beheading. Later, Johann was summoned by Count Zarpin, who thanked him for protecting his honor and cleaning up the mess. Johann humbly replied that he merely did what was necessary, Count Zarpin suggesting they walk. Count Zarpin thanking him. Johann's humble reply. Count Zarpin then asked Johann who he believed was behind the incident. Johann confidently attributed it to Ulrike's machinations, explaining her likely motives, eliminating Stefan to avoid ransom payments, using his death to nullify the prisoner guarantee obligation, and thereby voiding the war reparations. He also suspected she intended to frame him for the assassination, hoping to remove him from the countship through a rigged trial. Johann recounted Ulrike's cruel past, recalling how she once tied up a defiant stallion and whipped it to death, underscoring her formidable nature. Thanks to Johann's quick thinking, House Abner was now in a desperate position, and Johann had successfully protected both the war effort and the honor of House Zarpin. Impressed, Count Zarpin offered Johann a knighthood. Johann, however, was left to ponder his precarious situation, having been targeted by Countess Abner and now needing to be especially wary of Ulrich. He realized that despite the immediate victory, this was far from over. A prestigious count extended an offer to Sir Johann, a knighthood. This was no small gesture, as knighthood was a sacred ceremony, bestowing upon the ordainer full responsibility for the knight's future actions. It was a rare honor, reserved only for the chosen few, never granted lightly. Johann reflected on his arduous past. He had endured a life marked by discrimination from a young age, constantly struggling to find a way to survive. His hometown had been ravaged by the emperor's forces, leaving him a wanderer, forced to conceal his true identity. For someone like him, receiving such an esteemed title felt like a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity he couldn't possibly refuse. The count then made a request. Since Stefan, a son of House Abner, was Johann's prisoner, he asked Johann to escort him safely to Abner territory to collect the ransom. He warned that Ulrich, Stefan's sister, would undoubtedly attempt to kill Stefan to prevent the ransom from being paid. Johann's task was to deliver Stefan alive. If he succeeded, the knighthood would be his. Johann, with unwavering confidence, accepted the challenge, assuring the Count he would safely lead Sir Stefan to his destination. The gates of the stronghold opened wide, and Sir Johann, along with the victorious envoys, departed, carrying the grand dream of knighthood in his heart. Half a day later, as the sun began to set, Stefan grew increasingly anxious. A recent bandit attack, where Johann had brutally dispatched their assailants, left him rattled. He couldn't comprehend how the other knights remained so calm. He was the youngest son of House Abner, after all, and he feared assassins lurking in the shadows. He desperately wanted to avoid spending the night on the open road. Johann, sensing his distress, agreed to seek refuge in a nearby village. Stefan eagerly urged everyone to pick up the pace, while Johann felt a strange sense of familiarity as they approached the village. Upon their arrival, the villagers erupted in joyous recognition. They hailed Johann as the troll slayer of Marseille, their savior, and welcomed him with overwhelming gratitude and warmth. The village chief, radiating hospitality, promised them the utmost comfort during their stay and inquired about Johann's companions. Stefan, ever arrogant, immediately began demanding luxurious accommodations, a grand banquet, and 3 of the prettiest maidens. Johann swiftly intervened, striking Stefan and admonishing him for his foolishness. He warned Stefan against openly revealing his identity and creating unnecessary enemies. Johann instructed the chief that they would handle their own food and simply needed lodging, politely declining the maidens. The villagers continued to sing Johann's praises, much to the knight's surprise, as they noted Johann's immense popularity, even in Zarpen's county. Johann, while grateful for the warm reception, remained wary, hoping his newfound fame wouldn't reach Ulrich's ears. Stefan, meanwhile, grumbled about his room, but the knights assured him of their rigorous guard, with mercenaries patrolling and Johann himself right next door, ready to protect him. Still, Stefan couldn't shake his anxiety, convinced Ulrich was capable of anything. Later that night, a sudden crash and a piercing scream echoed through the quiet village. Stefan, utterly terrified, immediately assumed it was an assassin. Johann, however, calmly revealed the source of the commotion, a mere rat. He chastised Stefan for his dramatic overreaction, but Stefan secretly mused that Johann was far more terrifying than any rat or assassin. As dawn broke, Johann was on patrol when a knight informed him of a guest. Standing before him was a woman with fiery red hair, holding a banner emblazoned with a rose. She greeted him. "We finally meet, Johann Eitz," and, with a knowing smile, offered him some good liquor, suggesting a drink, just the 2 of them. Johann Yates, a wandering knight, was surprised when a servant announced an unexpected guest. A woman named Yates had arrived, requesting an audience. She quickly invited him to her private tent, explaining she had moved the guards a considerable distance to ensure their privacy. There, she intended to make a secret deal. She wasted no time. Getting straight to the point, she wanted Johann to kill Stefan. To sweeten the offer, she immediately offered Stefan's ransom money, then quickly doubled it to 400 gold coins. Johann, however, refused. She pressed him, insisting he at least hear her out properly before making a decision. Her offer dramatically increased to 1,000 gold coins. She emphasized the immense value of such a sum, enough to purchase a fief and still have money left over. This fortune, she suggested, could finally put an end to his wandering life. Yet, Johann remained unswayed, reiterating his refusal. Puzzled by his hesitation, she probed further, asking if he was worried about personally killing Stefan. She proposed a convenient loophole. If he simply looked away once they entered Abner County, her men would take care of Stefan. This way, Johann wouldn't be held responsible, as the act would occur within Abner territory, shifting the blame entirely. Johann questioned her extreme measures, wondering if such an expensive proposition was merely to prevent war losses. She dismissed his rural noble perspective, explaining he couldn't grasp the extent of Stefan's transgressions. Compared to the damage Stefan had inflicted, 1,000 gold coins was merely child's play. She then revealed her true ambition, to become the undisputed master of House Abner. Stefan, she insisted, was a constant drain on the family's wealth and would inevitably ruin them. His elimination was a necessary bargain, even at such a high price. Johann noted her unusual honesty. She then presented him with a certificate for 1,000 gold coins, assuring him it could be immediately exchanged for cash at any trading company. She urged him to accept, believing it would salvage his pride. Still, Johann refused. Her shock was evident as she asked if he was serious. Johann confirmed his stance, then offered a detailed explanation for his decision. First, he explained that if Stefan were to die, the Countess's wrath would undoubtedly fall upon him. Even if he wasn't directly responsible, the resentment would be directed his way, for a human heart was not easily appeased. Second, he declared he simply could not trust her. Just the previous day, she had attempted to poison Stefan. Had that attempt succeeded, Johann would have been framed as the culprit, a scenario that would have served her interests perfectly. When she accused him of baseless suspicion, he pressed on, asking what guarantee he had that she wouldn't betray him after he took the gold. If she were to turn on him, he would be left utterly defenseless. She scoffed, calling his thinking ridiculous and questioning how any deal could be made with such distrust. Johann calmly responded that this was precisely why he only dealt with strong, trustworthy individuals. Finally, he revealed his most crucial reason. He had received direct orders from Count Zarpin to deliver Stefan alive to Count Abner. Allowing Stefan to be killed would irrevocably stain his honor. She exploded, demanding to know the value of honor when no one was watching. Johann, however, calmly insisted she listen until the very end. He acknowledged Stefan as clueless, frivolous, stupid, arrogant, immature, useless, and incompetent. Despite all of Stefan's flaws, he hadn't committed any offense grave enough for Johann to defy his orders and end his life. Above all, once this mission was complete, Johann was set to be knighted. He simply could not allow his grand dream to be ruined. Realizing the futility of her efforts, she muttered about finding someone even more frustrating than Stefan. Johann, having made his point, declared he was done with the wine and was leaving. She dismissed him with a scoff, calling it a waste of time. She then stated his refusal didn't change anything. The fact that he would be entering Abner territory the next day remained. She told him to look forward to it, promising him a proper welcome, since he had rejected her offer. Johann looked troubled by her ominous words. The very next day, at the main castle of Abner County, Johann was ambushed by multiple assailants. He quickly realized this brutal assault was the welcome she had promised, a ruthless betrayal designed to eliminate him. The chapter opened with Johann Yates, revealing a shocking truth to Stefan. Ulrich had offered him 1,000 gold coins to end Stefan's life. Stefan reacted with furious disbelief, accusing Johann of being a money-crazed lunatic and trying to hand him over to Ulrich. Our protagonist calmly clarified that he had, in fact, turned down the offer, leaving Stefan utterly dumbfounded. Johann knew Ulrich was clearly up to something nefarious, given her actions the previous night. Stefan, still shaken, dismissed the deeper implications, confident that his mother, the Countess, would protect him once they reached the safety of their home. Johann then pointed to a grand castle in the distance, confirming it was Abner County main castle, Stefan's very own home. With Stefan safely returned, Johann's thoughts turned to his next task, collecting the promised ransom for the somewhat idiotic young noble. Upon their arrival at Abner County main castle, the Zarpin delegation, led by Johann and Sir Stefan, were formally received by the Countess in her throne room. Johann introduced himself as part of the Zarpin Count's delegation. The Countess was initially overjoyed to see her son, her mind drifting to fond memories of his childhood, when he was an angelic boy who ate flowers and played with swans. However, her expression darkened considerably as her gaze fell upon Johann. She blamed him for everything that had gone wrong, convinced that his actions had caused her immense humiliation. She described his smooth face contrasting with his rugged body, believing he had threatened Stefan and led to their defeat in the recent war. Fearing she would lose face before her vassals, she decided to assert her dominance, declaring the entire Zarpin delegation insolent for being armed in her presence. Johann's delegate attempted to explain that Count Zarpin had granted them permission to carry weapons via a letter, but the Countess was enraged, deeming it defiance. She ordered her guards to disarm them, confident that the knights would have no choice but to comply with her power play to uphold her house's honor. However, Johann stepped forward, asserting his legitimate right to be armed. He declared that if they wished to take his weapon, they would have to kill him first. His audacious statement, made deep within enemy territory, stunned everyone present. The Countess, surprisingly, found herself captivated. Her heart quickened, responding to the sheer courage emanating from this man. She found his brave eyes remarkably likable. She inquired if he was from House Zarpin, but he clarified that he was merely an invited guest. She then asked why he had captured Stefan in the first place. Johann explained his actions were solely to protect his own honor, assuring her he held no grudge against House Abner. Impressed by his bravery, the Countess granted him special permission to remain armed. Just as Johann expressed his gratitude, a vassal named Ino Goan interrupted, declaring his honor insulted. He vowed to fight Johann to restore House Abner's pride. The Countess, concerned, urged Johann not to accept the duel, warning him of potential death and suggesting he simply flee, as it would suit him better. But Ino continued his taunts, threatening to spread rumors throughout the empire of the troll slayer of Marcel. cowardly fleeing an honorable duel. He even questioned if Johann was a formal knight. Johann, realizing this was exactly what Ulrich had hinted at, accepted the challenge, daring Inno to come at him. The Countess, now seemingly thrilled by the turn of events, announced that her son, Gerdolf, would serve as Inno's proxy in the duel. The scene shifted to the Abner main castle training ground, where a massive muscular man named Gerdolf, known as the Noble Butcher for having slain hundreds of knights in duels, stood ready. He roared his intent to kill Johann Yaitz, the despicable and arrogant knight. The duel began with Gerdolf launching a ferocious assault, aiming to crush Johann's head. As the heavy blows rained down, Ulrich watched with a sinister smile, urging Gerdolf to finish him. The Countess, however, was horrified, reminding Ulrich that Johann's death would give Zarpen an excuse to reignite the war, leading to unbearable losses for Abner. Ulrich coolly dismissed her concerns, claiming they would simply collect emergency funds and that war was a piece of cake without an incompetent commander. The Countess, confused and alarmed, pressed Ulrich on why she was trying to kill Johann. Ulrich, with a knowing look, revealed that Johann was currently Stefan's bodyguard knight. She clarified her strategy. Before she could eliminate Stefan, she first had to remove his protector. The Countess, now fully understanding the depth of the betrayal, screamed for the duel to stop, but it was too late. The match was suddenly over. Gerdolf lay unconscious on the ground, defeated. Johann stood victorious, his sword resting nearby. The Countess stared in utter disbelief, a single question escaping her lips. Lost? Johann initially thought he would simply go through the motions, allowing Gerdolf to save face for his house and then move on. He reasoned that acting as though it had been a close fight would be enough to satisfy their pride. However, Gerdolf proved to be far stronger than expected, and his intent was truly to kill him. The duel escalated, with Gerdolf relentlessly attacking, shouting for Johann to die. Johann, unwilling to yield, found himself pushed to the brink. Gerdolf continued to resist, despite Johann's warnings that his arm would break if he kept fighting. Ultimately, Johann unleashed his true strength, shattering Gerdolf's arm in a brutal display. He had overlooked one crucial detail about Gerdolf, the noble executioner. He was someone who would never back down, even if his body was shattered. Witnessing Gerdolf's unyielding spirit even in defeat, Johann acknowledged it as an impressive display of willpower. The duel concluded with Johann declared the victor, much to the Countess's delight and Sir Inno's displeasure. While Sir Inno's rude outburst marred the festive atmosphere, it inadvertently led to a grim realization among the Abner household. Johann Yaitz, the wandering knight, was a dangerous man who needed to be eliminated. His very existence, they concluded, would remain a thorn in their house's side for a long time. Later, as Johann sought a simple cloth to wrap his hand, he stumbled upon a distressing scene. Gerdolf, now a cripple, was being mercilessly berated by his superior. He was called useless and a disgrace, told he should have died in the duel and never show his face again. Johann, witnessing the man's despair, felt a pang of regret. He approached Gerdolf, sincerely apologizing for the injury, explaining it was unintentional. He then offered Gerdolf a vial of water of blessing, claiming it was from a sage and could heal a broken arm. Gerdolf, overcome with emotion, thanked him profusely. Johann's true intention was to prevent any lingering grudges. Meanwhile, Stefan, terrified, accused Lady Ulrich of attempting to poison him and manipulate Johann into killing him. The Countess, however, dismissed his frantic claims due to a lack of concrete proof. Instead, she presented him with a stark choice: enter the silent Sarkaz monastery. There, Ulrike would be unable to harm him. Stefan was horrified, recounting the monastery's harsh rules: a life of barley bread, shaved head, only men, and no possibility of marriage or leaving until death. The Countess gave him until the following day to make his decision. With the ransom secured, 200 gold coins for Stefan, Johann made preparations to depart for Zarpen Castle the next day, eager to claim his knighthood. He sensed the underlying hostility from House Abner and knew it was best to leave before further complications arose. As he packed, a sudden presence startled him. It was Ulrich, who had entered his room unannounced, startling him so much he almost struck her. She had a proposal, which he immediately refused, reiterating his intention to leave for Zarpen Castle. But then, Ulrich delivered a chilling ultimatum. If he departed now, his knighthood would forever be out of reach. Stefan, desperate, laid down a challenge to Johann. If he refused to help her, she would ensure he never received his knight appointment, branding him a coward. Though annoyed, Johann listened as Stefan explained her unusual offer. She asked if he was interested in taxation rights, which would grant him all profits from a territory. She revealed she owned a small territory called Heincut, a gift from her mother, but it had been abandoned after a goblin invasion. Stefan saw this as her only way to avoid being sent to a monastery, and if Johann succeeded in subjugating the goblins, she would gain her mother's recognition and protection from Lady Ulrich's schemes. Johann realized this was an unprecedented opportunity. For a noble who had only ever earned money through mercenary work, these rights promised a steady income and a chance to prove his worth to the Abner house nobles who looked down on him. Stefan proposed splitting the profits, a tempting offer despite his distrust of her. However, a major hurdle remained, funding the subjugation. Stefan expected him to pay, prompting his annoyance, though she quickly promised to hire mercenaries herself. Johann hesitated, questioning the wisdom of this venture, but Stefan appealed to his pride, reminding him of his troll slayer reputation and implying goblins were beneath him. Memories of earning that hard-won title flooded his mind. His reputation was valuable, but failure in this goblin hunt would mean losing his knight appointment and everything he had built, leaving him a fraud. Looking at the map, he understood this was a high-stakes gamble with his future on the line. The potential rewards, however, were immense. He decided to take the risk. Stefan then dramatically declared her intention to subjugate the Heincut goblins together with the troll slayer. The other nobles reacted with shock, accusing her of wasting the house's money. Stefan vehemently countered that she would fund the expedition solely with her own money, hinting that their true fear was her reclaiming Heincut. The countess intervened, silencing the room, and subtly expressed her hope that with Johann's help, Stefan would survive. When the countess asked for volunteers, only Gerdolf, surprisingly recovered from an injury thanks to Johann, stepped forward. Another noble, Ino, also volunteered, though Johann recognized it as an attempt to impress the countess. The countess blessed Johann, Stefan, and Gerdolf, commanding them to subjugate Heincut. Stefan, despite her initial annoyance at relying on a younger knight, confided her trust in Johann's protection. Johann assured her he would handle Count Zarpin, ensuring his knight appointment wouldn't be affected by the delay. Days later, at Abner Castle, the subjugation force gathered, soldiers from Ino and Gerdolf, contingents from Katana and Goron mercenaries, and 30 members of a supply support group led by the merchant Doris, whose presence was requested by Count Zarpin. Stefan noted her wealth had funded their hiring, but she expected a massive return. Just as they were about to depart, an old man named Suritla, the sage of the Eifel River, arrived, grumbling about being forced to join after Johann's messenger had made the voice of the Eifel River grow faint. With Johann leading, the Heincut subjugation force finally set out. Though Johann had fought countless battles, this one felt uniquely serious. With taxation rights, a step towards becoming a lord on the line. He had meticulously studied Heincut, noting its valuable location and trade routes, and believed it was a worthwhile endeavor. Goblins were generally considered trivial, leading him to expect an easy victory. He remained unaware, however, of the true horror hidden deep within the abandoned territory, a monstrous, overwhelming horde of goblins. When the countess asked for volunteers, only Gerdolf, surprisingly recovered from an injury thanks to Johann, stepped forward. Another noble, Ino, also volunteered, though Johann recognized it as an attempt to impress the countess. The countess blessed Johann, Stefan, and Gerdolf, commanding them to subjugate Heincut. Stefan, despite her initial annoyance at relying on a younger knight, confided her trust in Johann's protection. Johann assured her he would handle Count Zarpin, ensuring his knight appointment wouldn't be affected by the delay. Days later, at Abner Castle, the subjugation force gathered, soldiers from Ino and Gerdolf, contingents from Katana and Goron mercenaries, and 30 members of a supply support group led by the merchant Doris, whose presence was requested by Count Zarpin. Stefan noted her wealth had funded their hiring, but she expected a massive return. Just as they were about to depart, an old man named Swetelga, the sage of the Eifel River, arrived, grumbling about being forced to join after Johann's messenger had made the voice of the Eifel River grow faint. With Johann leading, the Heincut subjugation force finally set out. Though Johann had fought countless battles, this one felt uniquely serious, with taxation rights, a step towards becoming a lord on the line. He had meticulously studied Heincut, noting its valuable location and trade routes, and believed it was a worthwhile endeavor. Goblins were generally considered trivial, leading him to expect an easy victory. He remained unaware, however, of the true horror hidden deep within the abandoned territory, a monstrous, overwhelming horde of goblins. When the Countess asked for volunteers, only Gerdolf, surprisingly recovered from an injury thanks to Johann, stepped forward. Another noble, Ino, also volunteered, though Johann recognized it as an attempt to impress the Countess. The Countess blessed Johann, Stefan, and Gerdolf, commanding them to subjugate Heincut. Stefan, despite her initial annoyance at relying on a younger knight, confided her trust in Johann's protection. Johann assured her he would handle Count Zarpin, ensuring his knight appointment wouldn't be affected by the delay. Days later, at Abner Castle, the subjugation force gathered, soldiers from Ino and Gerdolf, contingents from Ketana and Goron mercenaries, and 30 members of a supply support group led by the merchant Doris, whose presence was requested by Count Zarpin. Stefan noted her wealth had funded their hiring, but she expected a massive return. Just as they were about to depart, an old man named Svetlga, the sage of the Ifeil River, arrived, grumbling about being forced to join after Johann's messenger had made the voice of the Ifeil River grow faint. With Johann leading, the Heincut subjugation force finally set out. Though Johann had fought countless battles, this one felt uniquely serious, with taxation rights, a step towards becoming a lord on the line. He had meticulously studied Heincut, noting its valuable location and trade routes, and believed it was a worthwhile endeavor. Goblins were generally considered trivial, leading him to expect an easy victory. He remained unaware, however, of the true horror hidden deep within the abandoned territory, a monstrous, overwhelming horde of goblins. Days later, at Abner Castle, the subjugation force gathered, soldiers from Ino and Gerdolf, contingents from Ketana and Goron mercenaries, and 30 members of a supply support group led by the merchant Doris, whose presence was requested by Count Zarpin. Stefan noted her wealth had funded their hiring, but she expected a massive return. Just as they were about to depart, an old man named Svetliga, the sage of the Ifeil River, arrived, grumbling about being forced to join after Johann's messenger had made the voice of the Ifeil River grow faint. With Johann leading, the Heincut subjugation force finally set out. Though Johann had fought countless battles, this one felt uniquely serious, with taxation rights, a step towards becoming a lord on the line. He had meticulously studied Heincut, noting its valuable location and trade routes, and believed it was a worthwhile endeavor. Goblins were generally considered trivial, leading him to expect an easy victory. He remained unaware, however, of the true horror hidden deep within the abandoned territory, a monstrous, overwhelming horde of goblins. Just as they were about to depart, an old man named Svetlga, the sage of the Ifeil River, arrived, grumbling about being forced to join after Johann's messenger had made the voice of the Ifeil River grow faint. With Johann leading, the Heincut subjugation force finally set out. Though Johann had fought countless battles, this one felt uniquely serious, with taxation rights, a step towards becoming a lord on the line. He had meticulously studied Heincut, noting its valuable location and trade routes, and believed it was a worthwhile endeavor. Goblins were generally considered trivial, leading him to expect an easy victory. He remained unaware, however, of the true horror hidden deep within the abandoned territory, a monstrous, overwhelming horde of goblins. In the abandoned Heincut village, Lady Valien and the sisters of the St. Aina monastery faced an overwhelming horde of goblins. The battle was a desperate struggle, and soon, their numbers dwindled as many of her sisters fell. Lady Valien herself was gravely wounded, her body refusing to move as she lay surrounded by the monstrous creatures. She mourned their defeat, lamenting her carelessness and the tragic fate she had led her sisters to, especially since the divine Iena's fires had inexplicably failed to ignite within her. With grim resolve, Lady Valien decided to act as a decoy, instructing her surviving sisters to flee while they still had a chance. Though they protested vehemently, unwilling to abandon her, she insisted it was crucial for them to escape. Their survival was not just for their own sakes, she explained, but to carry the devastating news of their failed purge to those who would come after. Reluctantly, her sisters obeyed, retreating from the chaotic battle, leaving Lady Valien to face the horde alone. As the goblins closed in, Lady Valien made a final, fervent prayer to Saint Iena. She begged for strength, then for an unyielding will, and finally for a miracle, since her holy flame remained dormant. Despite her pleas, she was swiftly overwhelmed. Falling to the ground bleeding, goblins swarmed around her, and she could only wonder if her sisters had made it to safety, questioning where God was in her darkest hour. Just as a goblin moved in for the killing blow, a figure, Sir Johann, arrived, cutting down the beast. Later, at an outpost near the village, Johann and his team, the Heincut Goblin Subjugation Team, were there to address the village's plight. Johann conversed with Lady Valien, who now bore a bandaged, severed arm. She recounted how her Holy Knight Order, strong enough to hunt trolls, had been decimated by mere goblins, and how her arm was lost, a wound even the miracles of the Eifel River could not heal. Lady Valian described an indescribably horrific feeling that permeated the area. But Johann assured her they would handle the rest, hinting that their mission, unlike her noble cause, stemmed from someone's greed. A sage from the Eifel River then offered wisdom, explaining the likely reasons for the previous subjugation failures. He suggested that the hired mercenaries were likely incompetent, more interested in looting the empty village than fighting the goblins directly. Furthermore, the sage explained that previous methods of subjugation were flawed, goblins reproduced at an alarming rate, and merely killing the ones found was insufficient. A true purge required searching their hidden caves and eradicating them from the roots, a task the mercenaries had clearly neglected. The sage hinted at a third, more unsettling reason, but chose to keep it to himself until it could be confirmed. Johann then declared that the full subjugation would commence at dawn. He announced that he and Gerdolf would lead the initial assault, driving the goblins together, while the remaining personnel would protect their unit and push the horde out of the village in a semicircular formation. The next morning, as the operation began, Lady Valienne, despite her grievous injuries, insisted on joining the fight, determined to honor her fallen sisters. Johann accepted her unwavering resolve. With a powerful, glowing blue attack, Johann initiated the assault, grimly observing that the more goblins that gathered, the more would surely die.